On this episode of the DTVC podcast, screenwriter Rich Pierce is on, and we're going to be looking at the PM classic Last Man Standing, starring Jeff Wincott. So stay tuned for that really fun conversation on a movie that I'd been meaning to cover for a while. So it just kind of worked out perfect that Rich wanted to cover that one as well. So that'll be coming up in just a bit. Then next week, first-time guest Jay Cluett from Deep Blue Sea, the podcast, is on, and we are going to be looking at Into the Grizzly Maze, which stars Thomas Jane, who is also in Deep Blue Sea. So a really fun conversation there. That movie has other names in it, too. It's got Billy Bob Thornton, James Marsden, who's going to be in in a big Marvel movie coming up this year, Piper Perabo, Scott Glenn. So, really fun conversation there as well. That will be next week. And then I did record with Ty for his monthly spot for February. We were going to look at two Jason Patric movies that ended up just being one Jason Patric movie, Shrapnel, because the other one was gated by Netflix because I have the ad version and I couldn't get it with the ad version. So we subbed that one out for, we went back to the Dylan Sprouse, Mason Gooding well, and we did it Under Fire, which was a fun one. So so keep an eye out for that one. Maybe 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks time, but we'll get that one out as well. Now, you may notice my voice is a little off, and you may have noticed in the cold open last week that it was really off. That's because I lost my voice that past weekend. So Martin Luther King weekend, I was up in New England visiting my family. My brother had tickets to the Patriots game. They're playing the Houston Texans, and I had caught a cold earlier that week before. I went to go see a Rangers game, New York Rangers game, and I was sitting right smack in the middle of the upper deck area. So Saturday comes along, I'm up in New England, I realized I think I'm catching a cold. I felt pretty good on Sunday though. The thing was, I don't really drink much anymore, and I'd had some beers when my brother and I were at the parking lot, getting ready to go into the game, drank some more in the game, and I kind of noticed that it was 34 degrees, which for people in Celsius, that's 1 or 2 degrees. And I was like, I don't feel cold. And I had bundled up, I had worn a bunch of layers and everything like that. So I thought I was dumb enough to think that was it. No, it was because I'd been drinking and I didn't feel the cold as well. So I ended up, my voice was gone from yelling at the other team's quarterback plus the cold. So this episode we're going to be doing today, Last Man Standing, my voice was still a little bit gone on that. So just keep that in mind that you're going to have trouble. My voice is not going to be the usual radio voice you're used to with me. But Rich sounds great. So, and again, it was a really fun conversation with him. Also, the episode I recorded with Ty was later that week. So that's going to sound a little off. And same with Jay's. Hopefully by the coming weekend here, my voice will fully be back to what it was. We'll keep an eye out for that. I was trying to think of anything else. DTVC Extra, I've got something cooking for that. So I don't want to say too much now because if I don't follow through with it, then I'll announce something that doesn't happen. So I don't want to do that, but hopefully soon. Also, YouTube channel, again, taking a break on that with my voice, trying to kind of get that back together. The Substack, again, I'm posting things from the podcast and the reviews on the Substack. I also have a personal Substack that I created called Boston Stories Volume 2. So Boston Stories Volume 1, it's a collection of flash fiction that I wrote on MySpace. Back when MySpace had when they first started, they had a blog feature, and I wrote these flash fiction pieces on there, and I'm collecting those and putting them in a book. And I thought I would use kind of the next version, Volume 2. I'd start putting those on Substack. So I have a Substack for those as well. If you look up my name or look up Boston Stories Volume 2 on Substack, you can find them. Got a couple pieces posted so far, but plan to do maybe at least one a week, maybe 2 a week. So we'll see, that'll be there. And then in terms of the site, we just did Jade this past week. So I'm not sure what we're going to finish the month off with. Probably something that we've done on a podcast. And then when we get into February, I'm thinking, I don't know. I'm obviously going to start with a PM movie. But we'll kind of see what we got going on. But I think I'm going to watch new movies for February and March episodes. February and March reviews. So just keep an eye out for that as well. I think that's everything. Of course, one thing I forgot to mention, my appearances on other people's sites. I was on the PM podcast recently, both myself and Chris the Brain from Bulletproof. We were doing another 3-man weave with John, this time covering Midnight Warriors. I can't sing it, right? I can't sing the Midnight Warriors theme song. My voice is that gone still. So, we covered Midnight Warriors. It was a ton of fun. Check that one out on the PM podcast feed there. You should be subscribed to that anyway. You should have probably already listened to that episode, but if you haven't, definitely go check it out. And then, of course, my novel, Mark in Sales. Link is in the podcast description. It is available on Kindle Unlimited, and in paperback. always appreciate people want to pick up my newest books and pick up any of my books. That's always great. But hey, the weather's getting really bad here in the Northeast in the United States. Maybe you want to read something. Maybe you had a New Year's resolution where you want to read something. Or maybe you're someone who does podcasts like me, or you do video conferencing at work or things like that, and you want to have a cool bookshelf behind you. My books are perfect for that because I've got all different colors. So you can pick the one that works best for you. Maybe buy a few copies and have them stacked up in there. It'll look great. But anyway, the link is in the podcast description. All right. Save my voice for my next podcast recording. So why don't we call this good here, have John from Miscellaneous Plumbing Fixtures playing our theme song. And then when we come back, Rich Pierce is on, and we're going to be talking about Last Man Standing. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Direct-to-Video Connoisseur Podcast. As always, this is Matt here, and I am joined once again by a very special guest. We've got Rich Pierce, screenwriter from Sector 4 Extraction. Welcome back, Rich.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. You can hear my voice is not in the best shape. Full disclosure, I was probably not a fun one for a lot of people, but I went and saw the Patriots play over the weekend. My brother got us tickets, and I was yelling at the other team's quarterback too much. And then it was like I also had a cold. I probably was drinking too much, and it was like 30 degrees. I don't know if you experienced this in Las Vegas, but when you drink and it's very cold, you don't feel the cold. And I should have thought something was up when it was like 30, because I layered up, but it's like 34 degrees, and I'm like, I don't really feel cold. But then I got back to my parents' house, because I was staying with them for the weekend, and I was like, no, I feel like I've got a mild case of hypothermia. So I'm like,
no, I know a lot about drinking. I don't know much about the cold, but in Vegas, it's cold here. It's like 58, man. So I'm miserable right now with in the 50s, dipping our toe in the 50s. Come on now.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say the one time I went to Vegas, it was February, and it was cold at night like that. And I was glad I brought like tracksuit. Well, my friends played poker out there, so they like warned me like it's going to be cool, And then we did a driving trip to the to the Grand Canyon, and we got caught in a snowstorm on the way there.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That'll happen. Yeah, no, it's I get the alcohol can make you feel like an Iron Man and then lead to the hypothermia. So I can relate. You sound like shit though. I gotta be I
do. Yeah. So you should have heard me. I mean, like so Monday when I was flying home, like there was like no voice. And then yesterday, like I had to work, and someone was like, no. And finally today, I'm like, okay, it's better. I think we can record and do some Last Man Standing, because that's the thing we're talking about. A PM classic here with Last Man Standing, because I was trying to figure out, we just did Don the Dragon Wilson, where to go next, what movies, and it just felt like Wincott PM Entertainment was a good combination.
Yeah, and I didn't know how much of PM had already had its dibs on your podcast here, but it's just anything by them. It was just every week going into the video store, renting through their back catalog, which there was a lot by the time I got into these movies. And this is one I definitely remember watching. I remember liking it. I remember the set pieces. I don't remember too much about the plot, but that's usually okay with PM. You can kind of overlook that. But this is one I remembered liking and watching it. I watched it twice in preparation for this, and man, this is up there for me. I don't know if I would have included it in my top 5 PM prior to this, but now I probably definitely do.
Yeah, this one's number 4 for me. So this one's after Recoil, which I know a lot of people have Recoil lower on the 3 R's of Daniels, but I just always love that one. The Sweeper and Zero Tolerance. So this one comes right after those 3.
Okay. See, I go Rage over Recoil.
Yeah, a lot of
in terms of the 3 R's. Yeah.
So funny thing is, I actually have Rage. I believe I have it 6th, because I always have a soft spot for Skyscraper.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
Which has the same baddie in that movie is one of the baddies in this one.
Right. Yes, that's right. That's a good point. Right. We got a snake, right? Is
Snake Underwood.
a snake underboard. Yes. Who spoiler alert for people who haven't seen, maybe I'll wait to say what happens to Snake later on. Okay. So you've got some spoiler alert for people that haven't seen, because I don't know how many people that have listened to the podcast haven't seen Last Man Standing, but I think a lot haven't seen it in forever.
Sure.
Yeah. It's one of those ones that's like, it's good, but it is one that like, it probably should be like a yearly viewing, I feel like.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's ones I check in on all the time. The Ring of Fire, Ring of Fire 3 is my pride and joy.
Same.
T-Force, I think I mentioned on the last one. T-Force is way up there for me. But yeah, this is one I'll probably have to add to my yearly reevaluation, and I'm sure it'll always just stay right at the top.
Yeah, T-Force, that's another great one, because that one's it's interesting because this is Spiro Rosado's one, but I think it was like his first one. And I don't know. I meant to listen back to the PM podcast that talked about this, because I think John was able to interview Spiro about it, and I can't remember if this was the one where like Joseph Mayer didn't like some of the stuff he did, but then after the fact, like he accepted it or what. I can't remember exactly how it worked, but I think there was some gonzo stunt work that Spiro did in this movie.
Oh yeah.
Now with Wincott, I think. Recently, I had Chris the Brain on. We talked about Martial Law 2.
Yes.
So I think that was the last time we talked. We don't talk Wincott enough on here, I think, for how cool he is.
No, yeah, he's one of those guys, too. I feel kind of like it flies under the radar a little bit. But, man, looking at his filmography, and I mean, the dude did big stuff, and he was on a lot of big shows, like in bit parts. Like he was in 24 and Breaking Bad, or not Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy. Maybe he was on Breaking Bad too. I don't know. But he obviously had a real solid career. But as a leading man, I feel like he really should have gotten more. But yeah, Marshall. Because what's the other one? His Die Hard movie. I can't remember the name. Where they're like at a nuclear facility or something like that. Open Fire. I think
right. Open Fire. Yeah.
That one's good. Martial Outlaw. Is another one I enjoy. And then he did like his version of Virtual Combat, where it was like a VR movie.
Yes.
I don't remember at all what the title of that one is, but I enjoyed that one as well. So the dude's solid, and he can kick ass. So he should have done more of these. Yeah,
and of course, was it Mission of Justice, where he plays another Kurt, like he plays a Kurt in this movie. And I just love when he does the gauntlet. It's just like,
yes, exactly. With the sticks, right?
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yep, absolutely, yeah. And Brigitte Nielsen's in that one.
Yes, she's standing there with James Liu and Matthias Hughes are like looking at him funny, like, oh, this guy can't handle the gauntlet,
Yeah, no, he's always great.
Yeah, and I think for this one here, it's like this. It's almost like he knows exactly what this movie needs, and he's just bringing it the whole time.
Yeah. The only thing that hinders for him, it's not as bad as like the David Bradley fanny pack wardrobe choice, but in the opening scene, he's wearing like this bright yellow suit jacket,
right?
Which threw me because it looks so much like The Mask, like not the Cher mask, the Jim Carrey mask, where he's got like a bright yellow suit on, and that's what he's wearing for a suit jacket. And I was like, that was a goofy choice. And there's a moment in the beginning where. And I guess I don't know the actor's name. The guy, he was the bad guy in Skyscraper, Mr. Snake Underwood. I forget the actor's name.
Right, because the best part about him is that he doesn't have a picture on IMDb for some reason.
Oh, no?
Jonathan Fuller is his name. And they actually put it in single inverted comma quotes, Snake Underwood.
He was also the bad guy in Blood Fist 6, which is my favorite of the Blood Fists. He was the he was the Hans Gruber of that movie.
Oh, nice. See, and that one also has a Los Angeles Dodgers standout, Steve Garvey.
Steve Garvey, yep. Which always blew my mind. I think I mentioned this on another podcast. But the weirdest casting choice ever was Steve Garvey. Like, I know he's a name, but like, how many people would be like, oh, Steve Garvey's in this. I'm going to rent it because he plays a captain or whatever he was who dies early on. But still, it was just an odd choice.
And he's having like sleazy scenes with Kat Sassoon.
Yeah. See, Kat Sassoon, I also talked about this. She was going to be my wife. I was in love with Kat Sassoon when I was, because this in is it Angel Fist, the one that she starred in?
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah. Oh my God. I was in love with Kat Sassoon.
She was great. She was in another Blood Fist too, wasn't she?
Yeah. I
Five,
forget
maybe.
which one. Maybe it was one of the. She was in a, but yeah, she was always great. But yeah, the guy Jonathan Fuller, you say his name is?
Oh yes, yeah.
He's fantastic, and in this movie, as he had in Blood Fist 6 as well, he's got like kind of longish gray hair.
Right.
So there's a wonderful chase. Speaking of the yellow suit jacket, in the beginning of the film, as Jeff Wincott is pursuing him through a kitchen, a hotel room or a hotel kitchen, and they're pushing staff out of the way, flipping over tables and stuff. Yeah, and there's very clearly a stunt double for Mr. Fuller. So he's got like the gray wig on, but it's kind of a stray. So it really, if you squint and watch that scene, it looks like Jim Carrey's The Mask is chasing like Doc Brown through a kitchen because he's got that like crazy gray hair. And I just found that very, very comical watching it through that lens.
Yeah, see, I agree with you because there's a couple of moments too where Fuller is like diving over tables.
Yeah,
and you can really see it there too when the
Yep.
stuntman. Yeah, that's so good. For me, the coat was NFL Hall of Fame. And so it's like, there's Wincott going with like Dan Marino to get inducted into the Hall of Fame with this. And then later, his green jacket isn't quite green enough to be Masters, but it's another great choice. Like later
Exactly.
scene. Yes. So maybe I'll give a quick synopsis and then we'll kind of get into, because there's so many great moments in this movie. So we got to just take them, bounce them off because they kind of come at you fast and furious. But Wincott, he and his partner Doc, played by Jonathan Banks, they get called to a disturbance in a hotel and discover that they are walking in on some guys that committed a bank robbery in an earlier scene, led by Fuller, John Lasardo, etc., who are divvying up the money, and they decide to hose one of the guys down with an Uzi because he didn't want to pay them, which is a smart move, right? You're divvying up a whole bunch of money, and like, why not just shoot somebody with an Uzi? So this leads to a big chase. Wincott arrests him, but discovers that his boss, who is played by C. Thomas Howell's partner in The Sweeper, Steve Easton. Remember, he gets stabbed when they do the sting at the ATM.
I'm sorry, my phone completely. I lost you on that. Sorry.
Okay, no worries. So Steve Easton was he gets stabbed in The Sweeper.
Okay.
When they're doing the sting at the ATM machine.
Okay.
Yeah. When the most memorable part of that scene is, of course, C. Thomas Howell wearing the House of Pain hat. So that's that's what makes that scene. But yeah, so Steve Easton's that. And the other thing that Michael Bolton fans will know him from is I think he played Terry Hatcher's dad in Missing You Now. Featuring Kenny G as well.
I had that's amazing.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. People can check that out on YouTube. You can see this guy in there with Terry Hatcher and Michael Bolton. And Kenny G. Kenny G does the nice sax solo in that Michael Bolton did. But anyway, this guy in this movie, he's a crooked cop. And so as Wincott starts discovering that like stuff, evidence is missing, things like that, he can't let it go. But of course, the net drops on him. He's got to turn in his gun and his badge. He's married to Jillian McWhorter. He's helping her out. He thwarts another bank robbery, and so it's like as he's kind of getting closer to what's happening, the baddies are getting closer to trying to kill him. And it's one of those deals where it's like, can he make it? It's kind of almost like a Blood Fist scenario, like a kind of pretty much Blood Fist 4 through whatever. Every one man against the world, essentially. But he does find an old buddy of Doc's, who's like from Boston with a thick Boston accent, who helps him out. And so that's kind of how but I mean, it's just one scene after another. Maybe that's what we could, So I guess, Rich, what were some of your favorite scenes in this one?
Well, I mean, so much glass. The budget for the glass must have just been through the roof because everyone's diving through glass, even in situations where, unless I miss something, it doesn't necessarily make sense. In the opening scene in the hotel room, when there's a little bit of a shootout, and Wincott is pursuing Fuller. I keep forgetting the name. Fullerton. What was the?
Oh, was it Fullerman or?
I don't
Fuller,
know.
Just Fuller.
Fuller. When he's pursuing the big baddie, Doc Brown, gray hair baddie.
Yeah.
He just dives through a mirror, and like, who's to say it's a mirror mounted on a wall? Who's to say it's hollow and there's something on the other side? Because it looks like he just jumps headfirst into a mirror, but he goes through the wall. So there's so much glass breaking in this, which is just always, you know, in the lower budget stuff, you could see that as like a cheap way of getting some thrills. But of course, with PM, you're getting nonstop shootouts, nonstop car chases, and it's just incredible.
Yeah, it's when I listened to the PM podcast talk about this, the guest that was on, Jim Edwards, was saying how, you know, for the cable days, right, there's really no place that you could pop in the middle of this and not get an action scene that pulls you in. I think maybe the one lull is after the big barn blows up. And then, like, you know, Wincott's trying to like figure things out. There's like a kind of an extended, like, you know, people planning things and figuring things out, which does lead to a good fight scene in a nightclub. That's where we kind of pick it back up. But
Absolutely.
I think that's the only place where, if you were watching this, you know, if you're flipping through the channels and you pop on HBO or Cinemax or something, and you are in the middle of this movie, that's the only place that you wouldn't get an action scene within 2 minutes of turning into it. And oh, no, I was going to say, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
In context is not necessarily applicable. You don't need to know. For instance, the first time I saw Rage was getting up to get ready for high school, and back in my day, you know, you had to get up at like 5:45 to get ready for school. So there was some local channel that was always showing like lower end movies. I guess they showed one, you know, from 3 a.m. to 6 or whatever it was, 4 to 6 a.m. And I caught Rage for the very first time on that. And it was the mall, you know, the big action set piece in the mall at the end of the movie. And I had no idea what was going on. I just assumed that's the good guy. And I enjoyed the hell out of it, which is what made me track it down on VHS. So same deal here. You can tune in 40 minutes in, and, you know, you're not missing, you know, you want to go back and watch the set pieces probably, but you can pick up on the story like that. And it's kind of like, I just saw Matt Damon make a comment on promoting this latest movie he has with Ben Affleck that just came out, where he said there's some sort of mandate at Netflix where every 15 minutes they want you, the screenwriter, to repeat the plot, whether it's just a line of dialogue. Yeah. And that's been a rule, like, for the Lifetime movies I write. Like, I would say it's even more than every 15. It's probably like every 5. They want you to like hint back to what we're all doing here and what the story's about. Same kind of deal here, but they don't have to, because you pick up on, obviously, that's John Wayne. He's the man against the world, and there's the rest of the world, and he's taking them all on. So it's a way of, like, with action beats, picking you up to, you know, letting you know where you are in the story without having to repeat, you know, I'm trying to find out who killed my partner and all that kind of stuff, like it is in this one.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting because I've heard that the reason why, like, Netflix does that, or like Apple also requires that, is they want you to be able to look at your phone. They want you to be distracted while you're watching the movie.
That's exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Whatever.
And I mean, I guess with Lifetime, it makes sense because you could just be flipping channels and pop on the Lifetime and catch the movie. But it is kind of funny that PM is almost sort of like future-proof their movie without realizing.
Exactly. Whether that's a good or bad thing, that's exactly what they've done. And the same way, like, my wife's family, like, she's the first generation born in America. Everyone else is from Poland. And like, her grandma and mom, when they came here, didn't speak any English. They loved I Love Lucy, because that's a show they could watch and not understand a damn word they're saying, but it's still, you know, crazy lady acts funny. So it's still, you know, the story still translates. And the same way here, but with action.
So I wonder, like, how they would have gotten the joke. Like, one of my all-time favorite jokes from a TV show is the one where they're going to an etiquette class. And the guy's like, there are 2 words you should never say, and one of them is swell and one of them is lousy. And like, the joke, they were just like, well, all right, well, I definitely don't want to learn the lousy one, you know. And it's like, yeah, because I mean, I guess too, for them, depending on when they moved here, her family, I guess swell and lousy would have been used more than they are today, because it's like,
yeah, they're kind of gone.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. I always love that like, you know, yeah, like my friends that I used to watch Telemundo when we were in college, who just throw it on and just get a kick out of it. And I'm
probably drunk then too. That sounds like a good way to enjoy it. Yeah,
definitely.
Drunken Telemundo nights. That sounds fine.
Yeah, just like, you know, done with classes, and rum and Coke with and I got like with the solo cups. And
Uh-huh.
yeah, and so and yeah, it was like before we would do something, we'd throw on that, and it was like I learned the days of the week in Spanish. I don't know if I learned. Oh, I learned tonight, esta noche. I learned some, but for the most part, I didn't learn any words in Spanish. It was just, but you could kind of figure it out because they were like all soap operas, and
Sure.
growing up as a kid, like my mom watching soap operas and stuff, like I understood how they worked enough
Yeah.
that I could understand what was happening.
Sure. It was, and the same deal when I would flip through and catch film. It was that, or like kind of racy, slightly scantily clad women in variety shows, or they'd be doing a sketch, and it's just some fat guy with a scantily clad woman, and I don't understand what they're saying, but I get the jokes because his eyes are bugging out of his head, and a pretty girl walks by, stuff like that.
Yeah, that was a routine that they always did. I guess that's just something that they do, or they did. At least they did 20 years ago. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Big older fat man, and then scantily clad woman. Yeah, it was like almost like there must have been like a ratio. You had to have like 2 or 3 scantily clad women to every older, overweight man. Yeah.
They have similar metrics with a PM, man, because like this one doesn't have quite as many boobs as other PM vehicles, but I mean they start off real quick with Jillian. They introduce her character. She's getting a promotion. He gives her a kiss. I should get more promotions. Hard cut to sex scene. I don't think you really see anymore until the nightclub or strip club, whatever it is, toward the later part of Act 2. But same deal formula. You got to have the action beats. You got to have the boobs, and and car chases. I mean, so the one thing I wanted to bring up was I forgot how many. If you were to have asked me like what's front and center in this movie, I would have remembered the fights with Wincott. But
Yeah,
in all PM entertainment, there's always the car chases where you can tell it's just like a hollowed out Oldsmobile that they're like shooting up a ramp and stuff like that. And those are usually where I check out. Like, they're fun, but they can get repetitive. How many times can you see a car go flipping over another one? But in this one with the car chases in the armored car, there's a scene probably at the midpoint where, and I don't want to skip too far ahead, but
no, that's okay. We'll just bounce around. Yeah, that's good. So
cool.
Yeah.
This was absolutely one of my favorite, where he's Wincott's hanging off a chain that is attached to the back of the armored car. Money's flying everywhere. And the stunt man, the car is probably not going 80 miles an hour, but it was moving and it was getting some momentum. And you can see on the stunt man, as his jeans are tearing, you can see like the little pads on his knees and on his stomach a little bit, but it doesn't take away from that's a real dude hanging out the back of a car. And there's a couple quick turns the armored truck makes where that dude just slams into the median, like his body kind of rolls, tumbles, and just hits the median. And it's a guy. It's a real dude. So stuff like that is kind of what elevated. Even the thing I would find most monotonous in PM is the car chases, and even in this and in this one, they definitely elevated it. It seemed.
Well, yeah, because I agree with you there. Because that car chase. So to give people a sense, the baddies go to rob another bank that just happens to be Jillian McWhorter's bank, and
Of course.
Wincott thinks that she forgot her glasses, so he's bringing them back and goes, "Oh, there's a robbery going on." So as they escape the robbery in the armored truck, he commandeers a dirt bike or a moped or like a small, like maybe like a Triumph motorcycle.
Yeah.
And he's chasing them while the cops are all chasing as well, but getting blown up because to make the chase even better is that somehow the baddies knew what route they were going to go, and they staged bombs in various parked cars that they could, the woman that was Ava Fabian is the woman's name. Which people might know her from Dancing It's On. Gary Daniels' movie he did that was a dancing
I've never seen that one, but I'm very aware of it. Yes. And that's great that she's in it.
She plays his ex-wife, and she has one scene in the movie at the very end when they're watching the dance competition together. Yeah, but I mean, she's much better here for sure.
Okay.
But yeah, she's like blowing up these cars. So he's, Wincott's managing to keep up with him. But to your point, to this point of the chase, you're just kind of like, okay, this is fun. It's exciting. But, on a PM scale, this is pretty pedestrian. Like, what are they going to do here? And then the dirt bike or the motorcycle, the guy notices that the armored truck is open. So he drives whoever the stunt guy is who's driving, drives into the armored car and jumps through the thing. So that should be enough.
No, and it's incredible. For a second, because he kind of starts to stand up on his bike a little bit to get the little extra oomph to jump in the back. I thought for a second they were going to go like the Van Damme Hard Target, where he's like surfing on the motorcycle on that bridge scene. But they didn't go that route. And he just flies into the back. And again, real dude. So it's all super impressive. And you wonder how they can pull this off on the budgets they had, which is... I don't know. It's so missing from today's, and I think it's so boring to say that about PM. Everyone knows that, but it's so true that like no one puts this much effort in. I love Michael Jai White, and I love seeing his stuff, or Scott Adkins. Oh, Scott Adkins probably a little bit of a higher budgets, but like when you see a Michael Jai White movie, it's got like Mickey Rourke in like one of those sit down roles. Yes. And there's, it's all CGI for the bullets, for the muzzle flashes. I mean, and you could just see it's so much more toned down and artificial than this stuff, where it's like that dude, again, slamming into the median, dangling off a chain out of the back of a car. You're like, oh, if I would have read he died, I would have believed it. It looks so good. You're like, oh, he might be dead, but I'm assuming not, because it probably would have been publicized a little more. But it's all fantastic stuff.
It is. I mean, it's like, how many times have we seen two guys are fighting and there's a chain? There just happens to be a random chain around.
Yep.
And you wrap it around the guy's neck and you think, okay, that's what the thing is, right? Is that who's going to strangle who with the chain? And PM's like, yeah, you think that's what we're doing here, but that's not what we're doing, right? We're, somebody is hanging off of this thing here. I mean, it's almost like in, was it Dark Breed, where Jack Scalia is like surfing on a satellite dish. But in this case, like you said, he's hanging there, and like, it's like, they must have had this idea of like, okay, we're going to put all this padding under the clothes so you can't see it. Yeah. And it's like, that lasts for so long. But I mean, I don't know. As a kid in the 90s, I don't remember my jeans lasting like sliding into second base,
Yeah.
Like, so I imagine if I was dragged, God forbid, dragged behind a car with padding, my jeans probably wouldn't survive that.
No. And dare I sound a little pretentious about like the writing side of things. Like what you were saying, they knew their route getting away from the second bank robbery, and they planted cars with bombs along the way. How many of these movies have we seen where they're getting away and cars are just exploding? Like they clip a car and it explodes, but they made it a little bit of a story thing. Or the chain, like you said, in a lot of these movies, it would just be, oh, he finds a chain, chokes him, and then the good guy gets away, and that's it. But then the chain became an element of the set piece coming up. So there's a little bit of good writing too, because they're not introducing anything completely arbitrary. It becomes part of the larger set piece.
Now speaking of the writing, I wanted to ask you about one part of the writing that kind of stood out like more of a sore thumb to me. Is so Wincott and McWhorter are kind of on the run for a little bit. And again, it's established that they're a married couple. So they've been together for however long. And while they're there, he starts setting up some bottles for her to practice shooting. And
how did his wife not know that she could shoot a gun?
Right. Yeah. How did he not know that? When
I don't know.
Because he's a police officer. And so that's what I was wondering, is like, I could imagine, like, as a writer, maybe you put that scene in and then realize like, oh, wait, no. That's something they would have talked about, because again, her husband carries a gun for a living. So
at some point, a gun would have come up. Hopefully, maybe they didn't. But then again, all we know about their relationship is she has a promotion, and then they have some passionate sex. So maybe they just are always busy doing it to actually talk about anything substantive.
That's a good point. And I mean, the other touch too on the love scene was the erotic thriller grabbing the blanket moments in the throes of passion. I was like, don't tell me they're going to do the grabbing the blanket. She's grabbing the blanket.
Absolutely. But the only other thing I'll say about PM is, I think you strive when you're writing something, and I'm not successful at this all the time. If you've seen any of my movies, you'll probably agree. But like, you want everything in the story to propel the story forward. Like, one thing leads to another. It's never, and then this happens. It's always, because of this, that happens. Because that happens, then this happens. It's chain reaction of events. In PM, it is a little more, this happens, and then this happens, and then this happens. But again, with the set pieces, you can look past it. I'm thinking kind of like what you're saying, where they're out hiding, and they say like Bakersfield. They mentioned they're in the middle of nowhere, California, prior to Bakersfield, and they're hiding out in a barn. And the movie kind of does come to a stop. and then there's the big action set piece, and then it kind of comes to a stop. But then it gets a little procedural, as it's like, Boston guy leads me to tattoo guy, who then leads me to this. But again, that's all like last half of the movie. So the front half, story-wise, it's a little meandering, I would say, but who gives a shit? Like it's the action is what keeps propelling it forward. Robert, it just popped in my head, so I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit here.
Yeah, definitely.
But is it Robert Lasardo?
Lasardo, yes.
Yeah. He's just so good in this movie, and it's rare that you see him deliver more of a performance than just tough-looking dude. I've seen plenty of movies with him where he says no lines, and I've seen plenty of movies with him where he's pretty good. But this, I would say, is one of his award-winning efforts, because there's a moment toward the end where, again, there's a couple moments of comedy in this that kind of struck me as like, oh, that was a little out of place, but I dug it. He's handcuffed to a fence outside of where all the action is going on. And there's a little moment with where he wants to pay a homeless man to go get a hacksaw to saw through his handcuffs. And there's a moment of comedy. I don't know if I want to spoil it, but it was kind of out of place, but I laughed my ass off when I saw it because I didn't see it coming. And it was really good. And then the freeze frame at the end of this movie, my God, that was another moment where I'm like, I don't know if they meant it to be, because it is a tough, badass moment, but it's so funny. And I'm like, I don't know if they meant it to be as funny as it came off. But again, little nuggets of comedy in there that by that point of the movies where these beats happen, you kind of are like, oh, I'm not expecting any comedy out of this. But then you get a little bit. So it was, whether it was intentional or not, it was very effective in this.
Well, yeah, and I think it's okay if we spoil it, because I think at this point we're deep enough in where, for people, I'll at the very top, I'll also make a spoiler alert. But at this point, for people, if they're listening, this is on YouTube. So you can watch.
That's where I watched it.
Yeah, same here.
Boobs and all.
Boobs and all. It's a really great version as well. I mean, it looks clean. So definitely check it out on YouTube and watch it. Like if you haven't seen this in a while, to watch it because it's so good. But yeah, I think we should definitely spoil things. I mean, I think the Lasardo scene is. When he's taking, I mean, there's a fellow who's dealing with housing insecurity. He could be any number of PM, like crew people.
Absolutely, he probably was. He's probably the grip.
Yes, and he just shows up with a trash bag, and Lasardo's like, "Hey, here's $100. If you go get a hacksaw for me, I'll give you another 100." And he just starts walking off the other direction. And Lasardo's like kicking at him and swearing at him, and then
you son of a bitch.
Yeah, right.
And then a girl walks by, and I don't even know if I should quote him on this one, but that made me laugh out loud too. Because the next person who happens to stroll by as he's chained up is an attractive young gal, and he yells at her. She turns, looks at him, just keeps walking, and it's pretty funny. He shouts out some derogatory language.
Well, I also love that the first thing when she sees him is like, I don't even want to know, and she just keeps walking, and he's like yelling, he's like, "Hey, baby, hey," so yeah. That's so great. And I mean, that end scene where, so one of the things for people in the movie is, so Jonathan Banks' character, as Wincott's partner, he's telling Wincott, they go to a diner and Banks orders the prime rib, I think, right? At the diner.
I swear I heard her say chicken finger, like prime rib and chicken fingers, right. I think is what I heard. But
yes.
And then he gets like what, grilled salmon or something like
right.
Wincott. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like, so, I mean, I don't know. I teach their own. I don't know what prime rib would taste like at a diner, but maybe it's worth it. I feel like the grilled cheese is always going to do you right. So
sure.
Yeah, but
but this guy, again, going off a character, he's used to eating because his mother's a fairly prominent character in the movie. Jonathan, I feel bad. What's his name? Jonathan Banks?
Jonathan Banks is the actor. Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah, and I know he's on Breaking Bad, but to me, he's the guy in Beverly Hills Cop who goes, well, cuz he's the guy. So that's who he is to me. I'm sorry. I know he's gone on to do very big things, but he's still just well, cuz to me.
For me, he's the guy who gets thrown over the buffet by Eddie Murphy.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. I love that. And he pops up. He's got like the whipped cream on his face. Where is it going? Oh, so he lives with his mother in the movie, which is again I don't know what they were trying to say with that. Did they really explain why he lived with his mother?
Well, yeah, because remember he catches his wife cheating on him.
Oh,
and he divorced her, and I guess moved back home with his mom.
Okay, and he's writing this tell-all book, which is kind of important. Which is important to the plot later on. You come to find out, but he's living with his mom, and to go back to the diner food, this guy's used to because his mom makes him a bowl of cereal as he's waiting for Wincott to come pick him up for their morning police shift, and the mom sets down the cereal, and it was like Lucky Charms with mushrooms in it. Remember? And so, if that's what this dude's been surviving off of, I would eat anything at a diner. Is what I'm saying.
No, and then that she chases after him with his lunchbox, which my first thought when I saw that lunchbox is, man, that thing is probably worth a lot of money now, because it looked like it was from the 60s in the 90s. So add on another 30 years. And of course, who knows? Somebody from PM may even have it still. Who knows?
Exactly.
But yeah, that was it. So yeah, with that tell-all book at the end of the movie, they get the book published for him, even though he's dead. He's died in a hostage situation. But there's Jilly McWhorter. She's eating it wasn't a Klondike bar. It was like a
I something like that,
right? And they're talking about, she's saying hey, why don't you quit being a cop? You could do all these kind of things. And the next thing we hear a scream and a woman saying, "My purse,
my purse!"
And Wincott's running out. And she's like, "Kurt, don't run after," and then like you said, it's like this Chips freeze frame, end of the episode of Chips kind of.
That's exactly what it is.
Yes. It's like I was waiting for Ponce to point and laugh or something while he's
Yeah, he runs up to the bad guy, catches him in the middle of a busy street, picks him up, and just lays him out with a punch. Freeze frame, halfway through the punch, making the badass face, and then the music comes up, and again, it's badass, but it's funny. Which it was a unique beat to end your movie on, I think.
Yeah, the movie had these weird touches of humor. For a movie that was as serious as this was, where Wincott, him against the world, getting framed. The baddies were pretty sufficiently bad.
Yeah.
The fact that we had these touches of humor, like the mushrooms in the cereal, and those guys. And again, one of the best parts is at the end. We get our big end sequence, which is a big shootout in a Pershing Square subway station, which I've never used the subway in LA before, so I'm not familiar with that station. I don't know if you've used that one.
No. Yeah,
but the only time I came close to using the subway in LA, I was visiting my buddy who was going to a convention out there in 2009, and he was like, "Oh, my coworker didn't come, so we've got a free half of the hotel if you want to come stay here. You just got to pay for your plane ticket." So I flew out there and I had to get from the airport to the hotel. So I ended up doing the super shuttle, the big blue van thing.
Okay.
Yeah. But I was like, maybe I'll do the subway. Maybe I'll try to make that work. And I remember I was on the super shuttle driving by because he was like, "No, you don't want to do the subway." And I remember looking at one of the stops kind of on the way between the airport and where we were and the downtown, kind of near where the Staples Center and stuff like that is. And I remember seeing a guy waiting for the subway who looked straight out of an Ice Cube video, like the do-rag and the white tank top, just sitting there with his arms folded. Like he just was an extra in an Ice Cube video while Ice Cube would be walking up the street, just talking about how many people he was going to kill. And I was like, yeah, I don't know how I would have felt taking the subway if I was in an Ice Cube video.
Well, the whole subway thing, and you'll have to remind me, I don't have IMDb in front of me. What year was this? Did this come out? It was 95, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I noticed, and I bet you it was unintentional, but then again, it was just something that really stood out to me, was after Fuller, Doc Brown, terrorist, bad guy, gets killed, very realistically, that could have been the end of your movie. He even has the one-liner after his car goes over and kills one of the bad guys. So to me, I was expecting it, roll credits, but then the movie proceeds on, which is always how I felt about Speed. The minute that they get off the bus and they are on that little thing they're sliding on, and they get off the bus, it explodes. He saves Sandra Bullock. You think the movie's over, but then it proceeds on. And I had that same thought here. I'm like, oh, wow, this is kind of like a Speed ending to me. Cut to, they go to a subway, which is exactly where they went to in Speed. And even the killing of the ultimate bad guy is kind of similar-ish enough to the ending of Speed. So a lot of commonality between the structure of the last, the third act of this movie and Speed.
Yeah, it's almost like they borrowed a little bit of that. I wonder if, because I don't know when the subway in LA opened. It was not long before this. And I wonder if it was a great place to shoot. And it was
sure.
Hey, we could set up a whole bunch of fake glass all over the place and have a big shootout. I mean,
Right.
it was like a guy who was playing the saxophone who I guess was one of the undercover cops who just suddenly has an Uzi and
Yeah.
he's just hosing people down.
Which is great. This also has one of my favorite places. You know, if I ever get to write an action movie, or if I ever get to write another action movie, that's maybe a little better. Parking garages.
Yeah.
And this has a parking garage shootout fight, a little bit of car action in there. But to me, parking garages are the perfect location for action, and it also feels kind of low budget, like home. Like in our previous movie we watched with Capital Conspiracy, there's a scene in a parking garage where like Don the Dragon like ducks out of the way as the car's bumper slams into the wall and he's crouched beneath it, and it feels very low budget, but it's also a place we've all been, but also just feels very foreign and weird. Like anything could happen there. It's kind of like you're in a hidden cave, you know, if you're alone in an isolated parking garage. So I love the parking garage scene in this, and that's one of those where I feel it's like a staple, and I don't see it all the time, but when I do, I always love it.
Yeah, because it was a great moment because, you know, Wincott thinks he's meeting some IA guys to like, to essentially, you know, tell his side of what's happening with his boss. And when he gets there, he realizes very quickly that that's not what's happening, that they're there to kill him. And at the one moment where the guy is shooting at him and he kind of like jumps over the hood and lands on the other side.
Yeah.
And then he shoots the guy in the ankle from underneath the car, then pops up and plugs him twice in the chest through the window. Was a thing of beauty.
Absolutely. Like, it's just, love that stuff.
It's like, that's the thing I think with PM is it's almost like PM knew, like how, you know, these kind of things worked as well. Like, okay, you know, parking garage is a great place for, a scene. What can we do to make it different? Like, what can we do to add something to it? It's almost like they told the stunt guys, hey, if you could do it under budget, do whatever you want. And they're just like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, and that's the way I always have felt about PM movies is like, before they even wrote a word of the script, it's almost like they went out and got their locations and then built their script around it in a lot of ways. Like we know we could get a parking garage for cheap, or, you know, speed shot on the subway last year, so we can get it for way cheaper with all this, you know, if there's any standing sets or whatever still hanging around. So it's like they find all their locations, then find a way to make the story go to each one of these places, which is usually not how you do it, but maybe it's what leads them having such great locations and utilizing the locations to their fullest. You never, like, if a guy, like for instance, you know, when they go to the barn or whatever it is outside Bakersfield, the second you see that structure, that building, you're like, oh, this is getting blown the fuck up. Like, you just know it. Like, there's that big kind of, you know, crane shot where they first reveal the where they're going, and it's like, oh yeah, that's going.
Yeah, that is kind of an amazing thing, because I think that was the thing when I was watching the chase scene and the chain showed up and you know they were trying to strangle each other, and then when Wincott ends, because I'd forgotten about the fact that he's hanging from it, you know, and like I was like, how did I not see that one coming? Like, that's just so PM, right? You know, that of course the chain leads to somebody hanging off. It's not about, you know, that's because you know, like a lot of action movies, even to this point in the 90s, they were good with, like, again, going back to Beverly Hills Cop, like that opening chase where you're just hanging off the door. And it's like, that's exciting enough, you know? And PM was just like, no, that's not exciting enough. You know, we need people hanging off of things. We need people surfing on satellite dishes. We need bazookas and rocket launchers. You know, it's like, but the Beverly Hills Cop isn't enough for us. We got to go another level.
I feel, and I hate to say it, which is maybe, I don't know if it's a good or bad thing, but, you know, on the mainstream things, you see these set pieces and, you know, they're great and they're fantastical enough. But then on PM, it's like they just exploit everything they can. Like even the scene where he's shooting with his wife, you know, it's so badass, even though, again, it makes no sense that he would have never asked his wife, by the way, do you know how to fire a gun? But it's a badass scene. But even within that, there's some weird stuff. Like they do their little shooting. They set up all these like empty whiskey bottles that are just hanging around in the desert. They shoot them, and it's like a hard cut to them both passed out in the barn, like asleep. And it's so, like, to me, that's another one of those moments where I'm like, well, that scene didn't really lead to necessarily what's next. But again, you look past it because the next thing you see is that it's like an old abandoned gas station that they're hiding out. It's like a barn gas station kind of thing. And it gets blown up really good. In fact, that was the, because I've seen a couple different covers, like VHS and DVD covers for this film. And I believe the VHS used that shot of him and his wife running from the exploding gas station for the cover of the film when it was on VHS.
Oh, you might be
or
right.
one of the releases, one of them at least, because these movies get repackaged so much that like you never, like my copy of Ring of Fire 3 that I have on a standalone DVD that was like a $2.99 Kmart DVD back in the day. The photo of Don the Dragon, it's just like a blue background, and I believe the photo on it is like a promo photo from Ring of Fire 1. So it's just basically stock images on top of stock backgrounds. But for this one, I swear, I'll have to Google it and see if I'm wrong. But yeah, there's that slow-mo shot of them running away. And I'm pretty sure that was the VHS cover.
That kind of makes sense, because if you think about it, if you're going through the video store at that time, that's one of the interesting things too. I think about like the Blockbuster era versus the mom and pop era for a movie like this is, Blockbuster would have relegated this to the spine. And
yes,
because I remember my friends and I, when we would go, like, I remember my buddy and I were on a Michael Dudikoff kick in the early 2000s, because I think we saw Virtual Assassin on Joe Bob, and Joe Bob was making a joke about all the 2-word titles Dudikoff had. So we're like, oh, let's watch all his 2-word titles. This is great. And I think it lasted about a day, because it's just like, it was so hard to find his movies in like the corporate video store. Like, I think it was, either Blockbuster or Movie Scene or something like that. But it's like all of those movies were relegated to being, turned so that they were the spine. Whereas, Titanic, of course, is facing you, whatever.
Yeah.
And, like a lot of PM movies, they were sold by the cover. They didn't do well in the spine era of video stores.
Oh yeah, and I worked in a video store, as I think I mentioned, or I've mentioned it elsewhere. And speaking of Jillian McWhirter, because she was in The Dentist 2. She was not in The Dentist 1. She was in The Dentist 2. And that had such a horrific cover. I don't know if you remember it. Just like an all-white background with like a white female face kind of blended into the whiteness. And she's screaming, and she's got like these jagged metal shards coming out of her gun. Yeah. So what we used to always do is, just because we found that like such a horrifying image, like almost like, man, the cover of this is rated PG-13. It's just such a grotesque thing to see, which is usually what you see on like a trauma movie, because that's all they're promoting of, like, come look how foul and gross our movie is. But that was a fairly mainstream-ish direct-to-video movie. So when we worked in the video store, always, whenever that was in, if it was on the shelf, of course, it was spine out. We would have to correct that and put the front of the DVD and VHS out, just to make sure it was on full display, just because it was so gruesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, it's interesting. One of the things that I was watching a documentary about erotic thrillers recently, and one of the things they mentioned about how the Blockbuster era killed, kind of the VHS or DVD or whatever era, was that in the old mom and pop days, they would only have like one copy of a new movie. So you'd go in and if it wasn't there, you'd rent something else. And then like PM and erotic thrillers and all of them, they made their money on the something else, right? That the other movie wasn't there. And that like Blockbuster was like, no, we have, 30 copies of the new movie. So you don't need to get the something else. You always get this. And so then all the something else, the PMs, all of them, they all went under because, Blockbuster didn't want the something else anymore.
Yeah. Well, because you're always looking for, like, in these low budget movies, what can you deliver that the studios can't, whether it is more lurid content or bigger explosions, bigger car chases, like with PM. I heard an interview with the guy who directed Jason Goes to Hell, which has always been kind of like the stepchild of the Friday the 13th franchise. But he said that who produces Sean Cunningham was giving him notes, because I guess that movie came out within a year or so of like Terminator 2, and the producer told him when he was writing and directing it, like, listen, the ticket for your movie for Jason Goes to Hell costs the same amount as it costs to go see T2. So what are you giving an audience for the same price on 1/18 of the budget that they can't get from the bigger movies? And that's where I feel, if you're doing it the right way in the low budget world, that's what you should be looking at. And even respect for things like, I love Trauma, but they're not delivering the higher end stuff. So it's like, what can we see in that movie? Oh, a guy pooping out his bladder and then having his guts, strung, his intestines strung around his neck. And, you don't see that in, anything from studio. So I think that's a good ideology to have in PM. Always did it. And you're gonna have to send me the link, or at least the title, to this erotic thriller documentary.
It's called We Die for Love. It's on Tubi. Or is it We Kill for, or maybe We Kill for Love? Yeah.
Okay.
We die for love is we fight for love is actually that's what I'm thinking of. No, we kill for love.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is it all of like of this era of the like 80s, 90s kind of direct to video?
Yeah. So it kind of
Okay.
it's long. Now I should point that out. It's like 2.5 hours long. Um, but it is on Tubi. You know, you check it out. You know, it. So the other thing I should point out is it starts off really interesting.
Hmm.
So the guy who makes it, or I don't know if it's him or like he has an actor, but there's like this narrator who was like calling himself like a mythologist or something. I don't know exactly, but he's like, you know, I'm going in to learn about whatever, and he's like, you know, and you think like, boy, what is really happening here? But then suddenly it's like all the clips start. You know, so you get like clips from all these movies from the 80s and 90s.
Hmm.
The interviews, so like they interview Fred Olen Ray,
Of course.
Monique
Yeah.
Paron, you know, all those. They don't get Shannon Tweet. I don't know what that was about, but they get so many of them names, and it really gets into that era. So it's like it's interesting because a lot of what we know from PM we can apply to what they were doing with the erotic
Yeah.
thrillers.
Absolutely.
And so yeah, it's that part of it was really cool. And again, like they talk about these things with Blockbuster that I never considered before. That like, you know, originally Blockbuster was a positive for them because,
Hmm.
you know, if you made an erotic thriller in the Blockbuster era, you could sell 20, you knew you were going to sell 25,000 copies.
Hmm.
And that was essentially your budget. You essentially had made the money back. And now it's just, you know, whatever mom and pops bought it or another corporate entity bought it. You
And
were,
not even including foreign territories where you're going to make
yes,
quadruple. Yeah.
exactly. No, it's exactly. Yeah. But then what happens is Blockbuster's like, well, actually, we don't really need you guys anymore. But then also like the big names like Sony got involved too. So that they were like, you know, well, we'd rather do Sony's movie because Sony's the one who's going to give us, you know, whatever
Yeah.
big movie. So then they just stopped wanting the erotic thrillers. And I guess the other thing was how the erotic thrillers got into more softcore porn kind of stuff.
Sure.
And it's interesting because PM kind of ends around the same time that the erotic thriller boom ends. It's like the you
Hmm.
know early 2000s or
Yeah.
late 90s, and it's kind of interesting. It's like we don't really hear enough about like I know I don't know if John has talked to Joseph Merhi and Rick Peppa before he passed. I think for them it was almost more like they kind of got out of it, like they just
Yeah.
we're kind of done with it and they moved on. But it does kind of feel like that the things were changing as we got into the 2000s. Suddenly Van Damme and Seagal were making these kinds of movies, and it's like,
Yeah. And kind of took the market.
yeah, it's like, well, if you're Blockbuster, do you want PM movie with Gary Daniels or Jeff Wincott, or do you want Sony's movie with Steven Seagal? It's like,
And yeah, I remember going to the video store and even shit like Flight of Fury would get an entire wall. I'm probably the only one who was checking it out, but like because I it's so weird that now we look back on as like Blockbuster was the good guy, and that kind of wasn't the case. Like when when video stores were all around, I had my mom and pop shop that I went to throughout my entire youth. But then, Blockbuster, literally a Blockbuster opened across the street from where Video Time with a Y, was my little mom and pop video shop I went to. Blockbuster opens across the street, and then Video Time started doing weird things like, we do VCR repair now. And they started trying to like adapt and do things. But then they ultimately went under. But, they were not the good guys. So when people look back on like video store nostalgia, it's always Blockbuster front and center. And I'm like, I don't know if that was really, because even Hollywood Video, which is where I was employed, they were more open to independence, and they would have a lot of the, they had a great back catalog. Blockbuster, unless it came out in the last 5 years, you'd be lucky if they had, unless it was a huge release at the time. But Hollywood Video had a good back catalog, which is where I used to go. And whatever day it was, you had 99-cent rentals on like catalog titles, and I would just get 2 or 3 PM entertainment movies, watch them, and made my way through the catalog that way, because they at least kept around some of it. I'm sure they turned into a bad guy toward the end too, as everyone's trying to just outlive what the changing home video, which doesn't exist really anymore, or barely. So they were all adapting, but like, yeah, Blockbuster was not the good guy. People need to remember that.
right. No, I mean, in our area, Blockbuster, they didn't open across the street. But what they did is they opened in like prime real estate, where like the
Uh-huh.
grocery store was and the drugstore and all that stuff. So it was like, busy parents that were coming home. It's like, oh, we can stop at the fast food place, stop at the grocery store, and stop at Blockbuster.
And grab a
Like,
movie. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
And so like the local ones for us went out of business. I mean, to be fair, like I know one of them went out of business because I think that guys the family that owned it just decided they were done. I remember they didn't even go to computers ever. I mean, they were still using the receipt with the nail into the 90s. And so that was, I mean, and I remember because my friend's dad did a lot of the computers in our small town of Kittery, Maine. So he did a lot of the company's computers. And I remember like eating at their house because they were one of those families where you had to all eat together. That was definitely not my family. My family was like, here's the meal, take it in your room, take it on the couch, whatever, you know.
Sure.
But they were, so I remember like, you know, so you have conversations, of course, you know, while you're he was,
what weirdos.
right, exactly. This is like, it was like a foreign concept. He was like, what are we talking about? But somehow it came up that like he was trying to get them to, you know, shift everything over to computers, and they were like, no. So I wonder if they knew that they weren't going to be lasting that much longer, because it's like,
so why bother?
yeah. But I mean, I remember it was like, you know, they would write out the movie you were getting, what it cost, or what, you know, what movies and what it costs. They would have the one sheet. They'd give you the carbon copy as your receipt,
Yes.
and they put it on the nail. I mean, I remember Super Mario 2. That was like a big deal because, you know, again, talking about this, you know, renting other movies, or, you know, everybody had Super Mario 2, and you had to reserve it. And I remember that I couldn't get it for weeks, and I think I tried Friday the 13th, which I hated because it was so hard. TNC Surf Design also was so hard. You know, it's like, but you know that they made money by me because it's like, well, I'm going to rent some video game. You know,
sure, yeah, exactly.
But then it's like when Blockbuster's like, you know, again, similar concept, but if they have, you know, more than enough that you can rent it, it's like, okay, I rented Super Mario 2 once and I won it, so do I need to, you know, go back and get something else?
Yeah, exactly. And it meant for me, next time because it's a shopping center still right by where I live, I will send you a picture because it was legit like across the street when they did it. So I felt that was always very shrewd, because I noticed that a few other places in town, like it was across the street from whatever mom and pop, and then they killed it. And then, you know, whatever, 15 years later, they're all gone now too.
Yeah.
Although on the former Blockbuster that I'm referring to, it's now like a outdoor patio showroom or something like that. But when they tore down the Blockbuster lettering on the side of the building and they just hung up like a little sign over it, you can still see like the imprinted literature of the Blockbuster video on the side of the building, which every time I drive by, I'm like, oh, it's beautiful. Please never clean this building and like scrub that off. I like that it's at least a memory that, you know, video stores once existed.
Yeah, I think for ours, it was a New Hampshire liquor store that opened. So yeah, so New Hampshire, because New Hampshire is like one of those, you know, their motto, live free or die. They're kind of like Nevada, except they don't have the legalized prostitution.
Only in some parts,
right? Well, yes, exactly. But they don't have that anywhere. They're weird about legalized gambling too. It's like they put it underneath the purview of the lottery.
Yes,
yeah. So they're strict, but they have no income tax, no sales tax, none of, you know, and like their alcohol is just really cheap. And so what they do is they set up their liquor stores on the border of Maine and Massachusetts.
Oh, okay.
And so, but for some reason, this one was not really as much of a Maine, Massachusetts one, because it's kind of more in the middle of the neighboring town, Portsmouth, New Hampshire. It wasn't quite on the border. But it was one of those things where I think it was in a smaller location. Then when the Blockbuster went out of business, they took that over. And so it was like this big liquor store location there. Yeah. So, I mean, again, it was like this deal where it's just like, you know, you'd go there and get whatever for like a good, like $15 to $20 cheaper than you were paying.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, it kind of makes sense. Like out of all the places that would have moved in there in New Hampshire, it would have been the liquor store.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it is kind of, you know, looking at a movie like this, like because I think the other thing with a movie like this is the cable element of it, where, you know, as the 90s go to the 2000s, digital cable becomes a thing, and now you've got like Encore Action and these channels. You know, HBO had 3 channels, so they still had content that they needed to fill.
Absolutely.
But I almost wondered too, because they still had content they needed to fill. It didn't really matter if you had a new PM movie or you could just play this 3 times a day.
No, and you get the same level of enjoyment. Like I was talking about on the Comeuppance podcast not too long ago, whatever era it was, like 2006, like Spike TV showed a PM type movie like every night at midnight. And that's just, you know, setting up my VCR and recording all and just getting this big back catalog that I didn't have myself, because I never had HBO or anything like that. But same deal, even on basic cable, you know, you have to cut out the language and the nudity, but you know, it doesn't detract from the enjoyment of the action by any means.
Yeah, I remember when I got my first apartment after college in the early 2000s, I was like, no, I'm getting cable and I'm getting all the channels. I just, I just had to do it. And so, but that's what it was. It was like I had all the channels. I wasn't watching any of the HBO TV shows that were hot at that time. Right? So I wasn't watching The Wire or, Sopranos or any of those things. I wasn't really watching anything like that. It was just like encore action and like you said, taping those shows. And like you said, the Spike TV one was great too, because it was like, Cynthia Rothrock movies. You understood like the Seagal, like USA would always have Seagal and Van Damme, but the fact
Van Damme Wednesdays.
That's right. Yes, that's right. Yes. In Dolph movies, there was always like, I think I first saw Jill Rips on USA.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think at DVR, I think it was on like at night, I DVR'd it, but Spike seemed to have more of these kinds of movies.
Yes.
Yeah. That and then TBS late at night, they would, or TNT would have these kind of movies.
TNT, yes, exactly. No, and I may have said this last time, so if I'm repeating myself, sorry, but it was so elusive. Like, I loved Cyborg Cop. Yeah. I like Cyborg Soldier, the second one, Cyborg Cop 2. I always liked that one better, but I love both those movies. And even though I knew there was a third one that may or may not have actually been in any way related, which was made by the same company and had, Brian Genesee and Zagarino. So it wasn't David Bradley, but hell, it was called Cyborg Cop 3, and I could never find it. And the only way I ever saw it until it came out on like a double feature DVD with a Miles O'Keefe movie in like the mid 2000s was sometime in the early 2000s on Spike at midnight. It said Cyborg Cop 3, and I'm like, well, hell. And that was the only way I was ever able to find it, because no video stores around here had it.
Yeah. It's a shame, because what happened to Spike? It became Versus. Is that what it was?
I was taught when the guys on the Comeuppance podcast said it ultimately became Paramount something. FXX maybe, I don't remember, but it became obviously something. It still exists, quote unquote, but it's not at all the same.
I remember when originally it was the Nashville network, and then it became
TNN.
Spike. TNN, yeah. So remember that they would show Dukes of Hazzard on TNN. And then it was like, okay, we're going to convert it to Spike, and it's going to be guys programming. And I was skeptical at first. I was like, what is this? What does that mean? What is guys programming? Because. And I shouldn't have been that skeptical, because TBS was great with, movies for guys who like movies. There was always fun,
Exactly.
You always get Roadhouse at midnight, and then you get like a Stars movie at 2 a.m. And I going back to the drinking. I mean, I just always remember like getting home from drinking and like the room spinning, and there's like, a Dallas Connection, right? Like Julian Stray and Bruce Penhall. I mean, this movie we watched here, Last Man Standing, the way that they had the title come across the screen really reminded me of those later Sedaris movies, the way that and I'd be like, putting one foot on the floor or whatever to try to keep the room from spinning while here's this new Sedaris movie coming on. It was like heavily edited. I mean, there's just
of course,
TBS. There was a radio guy in Boston. I think his name was Rich Shirtleaf, but he used to have a radio show called Touch for Rich. But originally he was in Atlanta, and his wife worked for TBS, and she would be in the meetings where they would talk about how to edit the movies, and she would call him and be like, "You can't believe what we're talking about, how to edit this Sedaris movie." It's just like, that's amazing.
And not to put down Mr. Sedaris and his big filmography. I actually just recently, because I was searching for my DVD of Last Man Standing, which I don't have as a standalone. It's in one of those packs where it's like it's got Seagal on the cover because it's got like Kill Switch on it, right. But then it's got 11 other movies, and I have one of those sets with Last Man Standing being one of them. So I'm tearing through my garage looking for all my boxes of DVDs, and I found my very thorough collection of Sedaris movies, where they used to do those triple packs.
Oh yeah,
where they would have like 3 of the movies, like Dallas Connection or whatever. And I popped one of them on. Hope my wife didn't come in the room while I'm watching it. And to make the same point we've made 12 different ways. Those movies are built around the nudity, and there are action set pieces, but it's always like a remote control car where they put a bomb on it and they drive the remote control car and blow something up, or a bow and arrow and it looks terrible. The point of those movies is Julie Strain and all those other wonderful actresses who are in those movies. But when you cut out the nudity, there's just not much meat on the bone, where you get there is action, but it's not anything that you're gonna be excited about. Where it's the reverse with PM, where it's the action is what really comes first. And sure, there's boobs, but you don't come for the boobs. You don't come into those movies for those as the sole reason, as you did with Sedaris. But again, great work, and I obviously have all his box sets, so I must have gotten some enjoyment out of them without sounding like a total pervert.
No, no. I mean, they were. I mean, the one thing I think it was Mitch from the Video Vacuum we were talking about. I don't know, maybe we were talking about Van Damme or something. We were talking about how like you rent like a Sedaris movie when you're a kid, erotic thriller or something like that, and you'd be like really careful about that. But then like your mom would come in during the Van Damme movie when he's having like that steamy love scene with like two women and his ass cheeks are, it's like, and your mom and my mom would be like, "What are you watching?" It's like, no, this is the Van Damme. And then like, I tried not to like let it slip that I actually did get, erotic thrillers or something like that. Like I was like, no, it's a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie. Really? That's an action movie? What, it was like, so it's like, even as careful as you were, Van Damme would always screw us over. So I was like,
yeah, exactly.
I mean, to be fair, I would say with the love scene in this, because they kind of get it out of the way at the very beginning.
Away.
Wincott wasn't as uncomfortable. I mean, he wasn't Van Damme level of like, comfort. Because I mean, I can't imagine. I've heard that like love scenes are really awkward, because you've got like just dozens of people all standing around watching you, and like it's an awkward thing. But I mean, Don the Dragon, I think we were talking about this last time. He had a very awkward love scene.
Very awkward.
Yeah. Seagal with his big shirts and stuff, like, kind of with his hands, like his arms are kind of like, or his hands are always like kind of flaccid, and he's like hugging,
like enveloping her with his wingspan. Just, it's so not sexy. Like the poor girl.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, those women should have always gotten Oscars for how well they did in those scenes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think Wincott, I mean, it was a little bit goofy with like the flower, and he's like caressing the flower and stuff, but
yeah, not too bad. It certainly wasn't Don the Dragon or Seagal.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I mean, but again, I mean, the way that they did that, where they were just like, we got to make it like an erotic thriller love scene, was kind of funny, that they were just like, we got to have all these little elements, and they must have been using I think they were using body doublers for the nudity for McWhorter, because I did. But for the most part, it was just kind of like them. And I don't know if maybe they just kind of got together before the scene and they're like, let's try to make this as good, as natural as possible. And, I don't know, because it came off better than those scenes usually do.
Sure. Yeah. But I will say, upon rewatching it here, because I didn't remember, McWhorter's arc in this story. I just remember the action because it's been a decade since I've seen it. But when we first meet her character, they are hyping up how perfect their life is so much. I was like, oh, she's going to die like so fast, which she didn't. So again, whether it was intentional or not, because first time we see her, life is perfect. I'm getting a promotion. Oh, my husband's here, flowers, sex. Like, it was just so cookie cutter, perfect life. And usually what happens is that's what you do, because she's going to get blown up by an assassin. And, and that's the lead into Act 2, but it didn't happen. So great writing is what I'm saying. Well, right. Subverts your expectations.
Right, because with PM, right, the most dangerous person you could be is related to the hero.
Yes.
I mean, as Gary Daniels kids who get pushed off a cliff and recoil.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's like, but I mean, Robert Patrick's family bites it. I mean, poor Maria Ford gets it, and Ring of Fire too. I mean, she survives, but she's still, that's a good point. Like, you think like, boy, like McWhorter's not long for this movie.
Nope.
There are a couple moments too where I thought like, like he's going back to the house, and it's like, why are they doing a shot of him going back to the house? And it turned out he was just going back to his house. But usually there's a purpose for that, it's establishing something. And
the door's ajar, right. And he opens the door, and she's laying there with her, throat slit or something. Yeah, but
no, that's a great point. Like, at the very least, we could feel good that that McWhorter lasted the movie. So
absolutely.
It's funny. I thought, one of the kind of the funny things about this is that I think the last thing I saw Wincott in was he did a movie with Julie Strain called like
Battle Queen or whatever.
Yeah, Battle Queen 2020 or something. And obviously Julie Strain is taller than him. And then I'd seen McWhorter with Kenneth Teagar in Rage, and obviously she's towering over him. So when they were together and Wincott's a couple inches taller than her, I was like, is something off? He doesn't have lifts or something like that. Like, I don't know. And I looked it up, and no, he's 5'10" and she's 5'7". So it's just, because I mean, I think I want to say that Van Damme might have used lifts, or I don't know if he used lifts, but I think in Maximum Risk, I think Natasha Henstridge didn't wear high heels in a lot of scenes.
Okay, yeah.
I think they were like roughly the same height, and it was like, yeah, they didn't want her towering over him. So
Sure, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of funny how that is, because I don't know that I, like would be like, oh, like I wasn't thinking any less of Jeff Wincott because Julie Strain was towering over him.
I think that just goes back to the westerns,
Yeah.
and like, you never saw a woman standing taller than John Wayne or anything. So I wonder if it's just, this was the last era where that was a stigma they wanted to avoid with their big badass action hero. They got to be towering, and I don't know if that exists anymore, but
Yeah, and I mean, at least with because I guess McWhorter's character, she never really wears high heels. She does, like, I guess when she was at the bank, but they don't have any scenes
Yeah.
together when she's at the bank.
no.
So in the rest of the time, yeah, she's not really wearing heels. So maybe they did look at that and they were like, no, we can't do that. Yeah, she can't be taller than him.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to think. So I mean, one of the things about this movie is just the first 30 minutes is just wall to wall stuff.
Yes.
Which is just amazing. When we get the bank robbery to start with, which is just, kind of classic PM. The one thing I would say is that in that opening bank robbery, usually the front desk guard gets killed.
Yeah, I noticed that.
It was kind of nice that he just took the butt end of a shotgun to the head.
Well, they didn't kill anybody during that scene, if I'm right, or am I misremembering here?
No, you're right. Nobody got killed there. Yeah.
I picked up on that too, because again, when Lasardo goes up to the front desk guard, pulls his shotgun out of his bag, and just butts him with the rifle. He doesn't he hits him with the butt. He doesn't kill him, which is what you would normally see. So maybe these bad guys have a code of conduct.
Right, because I love it later when the bank job goes bad and the guy is telling them, just get out of there, just go. And he's like, no, plan B. And then, Ava Fabiano starts hosing the place down with Uzi fire, and they start just grabbing as much money as they can and get in the armored car. Because you would think probably discretion's the better part of valor. Just, okay, get out of there, just, escape. But, they weren't expecting to be chased by Wincott on a small motorcycle.
Who is but the other thing, again, you don't mind it as much, but usually in these, I mean, I guess a comparison would be Speed again. When you have these big action scenes where bad guy's plan goes awry and that's what sets the story in motion, usually the hero's there, but this is completely detached from our hero. It's potentially there's a version of this movie, if you were wanting to maybe be more elegant with your storytelling and a big studio movie, I guess, where you don't even need that open action scene. If you just cut that and said, oh, there was a bank robbery, the story would still work without it. But we have this big action scene. Of course, it's an explosive action scene and wonderful, but Wincott's not even there. It's completely unrelated to him at that point. It becomes eventually, but of course, they got to show it in a PM movie because we got to see as much action as we possibly can.
Well, and I also love that the way Wincott and Banks come into contact with the robbers.
Yes, it's over the most banal thing possible.
I mean, how is it not plainclothes guys that are being asked to go, investigate this? And then, of course, the fact that these guys have just created this huge robbery. You'd think they'd want to keep things as quiet as possible, and it says no, we're gonna give this guy some Uzi fire who wanted a bigger cut, shoot him through the door. But also the fact that the bullets go through the door
and hit that annoying
guy too. It's just, it's such a PM thing to do it that way.
Yes.
And it's and again, like you said, they could have either not had the bank robbery with the chase and just showed them divvying up the money. Because divvying up the money tells us enough of what's going on there. So they didn't need that, but also the device they used to get Wincott in the room to see the divvying up. It's almost like you didn't necessarily need that either, except for the fact that you needed to have this big, foot chase throughout the hotels and everything.
No, yeah, exactly. And also, if you were trying to lean more into the storytelling of it, because there's that moment where the hotel worker meets him up front and saying, oh, we're having a disturbance. Our clients, can't be behaving like this, blah, blah, blah. And, in a lot of these movies, there's a version where Wincott could see something suspicious, in the lobby, that makes him think well, maybe something more nefarious is going on. And he's using his superpowers because you want your hero to have the just the thing to solve the problem and do that. So he could be making observations, putting it together hey, maybe this is a bigger deal than it is. But no, in a PM movie, they're literally wandering down the hall, approaching the room, and bullets just tear through the wall. And it's like, now he's thrust in. The hero did not find the problem. The problem found the hero, which again, it's not wrong. It's just, it's more bombastic. And I think that's kind of why you love some of this stuff.
Well, it is. And it's funny because, Joseph Merhi wrote this one.
Yeah.
And I wonder if this is like, like all the scripts that he would be given from, like Jacobson Hart, and I think Addison Randall wrote them, or Charles King Geddes, whoever it was that was writing the scripts. You almost wonder if like this is what he wanted to do to all of their scripts. Was
Yeah,
just be like, wait, why is that guy, like you said, to your point, like, when why have Wincott be suspicious of something when, like you said, the bullets could just find him, and
Yeah.
it's like, no, this is what we want. We're going to move, because really there is only that one period towards the end of the movie where things are kind of set up. There's some plot things going on and whatnot. But for the most part, it is, shootout, chase scene,
Yes.
fight scene, chase scene, boobs, chase scene, fight scene. I mean, that first half hour, it's like they pack so much into that first half hour that it's just like, oh, wow, I'm only 25 minutes into this and I'm still haven't gotten to the point where Wincott's partner gets killed.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
I always know, like, Act 2 always kind of comes late in these movies because they want to front load it. And maybe that was part of their idea of like, we got to keep people watching on cable. I don't know. You got to hook them quick. But Act 2, like for Ring of Fire 3, again, annoyingly, it's a masterpiece to me. But like what is considered Act 2 does not happen until like 50 minutes into the movie. And it's all, because we have that wonderful scene in the hospital, which is completely unrelated to anything. And then a biker gang shows up and that's completely unrelated to anything. But when he meets the park ranger and they fall in love and then the bad guys kind of track him down, that's Act 2. And that's like at 52 minutes. So it's late in the game and kind of the same deal here, but it's okay. Well, it's okay because they do Weekend at Bernie's with the bad guy at the end, which again, I don't know if it was meant to be funny, and it's not like laugh out loud like some of these other beats that I've mentioned, but that was just such a very unique thing to do in a movie like this.
Yeah, so to give people an idea of what happens, so Wincott and Snake or Fuller, they have a chase in two Corvettes, which if I read in the comments on the YouTube upload of this, some guy thought that those Corvettes were what blew up, that those were. And I mean, they do a good job of it, but I can't imagine a PM movie had the budget to blow up two Corvettes.
No.
I mean, when the red one flips, when Wincott's flips, it looks a lot flatter and boxier, I think.
Well, yeah, and when you see the undercarriage, it's just like there's nothing under there. It literally just looks like the body on top of whatever else they could throw it on and then fling it over, 12 cars.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Sedaris, I think his mother-in-law was the one who would be tasked with, like, if he saw a Porsche that he liked, she would have to find like a Jetta or something that looked close enough that they could blow up. But because I think in the credits, I think I'd seen her name and realized that she was his wife's mother. And so, yeah, but there's that chase sequence. So as Wincott's chasing him, he hears the guy say that he's Errol Flynn, which was just amazing. But as the chase is going on and it's all over the place, and cars are blowing up behind them, as are wont to do. A couple of times they kind of pit each other and hit each other, bump into each other and stuff. But eventually, we get our flips. Now Wincott is able to stay on the bridge when he flips, but the baddie, Fuller, he falls off the bridge, ends up in the water, and we get the great line from Wincott, right? Errol Flynn's dead, So,
reminded me so much of Street Night with Speakman, where bad guy's quoting Shakespeare the whole time. Flights of angels sing thee to thy rest, Shakespeare, and then Speakman kills him. Hasta la vista, baby, Schwarzenegger. It was very in line with that.
That was perfect. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I was trying to think, because I think this movie had some kind of connection to Street Night. I think there was somebody in it who, maybe one of the stunt guys had worked on Street Night. I think it might have been what was.
Was Lasardo in Street Night? I don't remember if he was, but I could totally see it.
Oh, yeah, he could have been. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I can't remember. I'll have to look and see. But yeah. So when they're after the chase is done, the baddie's dead. They bring Lasardo in, who's been handcuffed to the fence, inside there, and they say like, "Hey, you got to wear a wire and go in there." And he's like, But no, they're going to want to see steak. They're going to want to see, don't worry, we got that covered. He's going to be sitting having a cappuccino. They're like, he's like, what? But he's dead. Don't worry. Let us worry about that. And so I thought, well, they're just going to put a wig on Wincott or somebody, because we already established, like you
Doc
said,
Brown wig.
right? It's there. The Doc Brown wig exists. They've got it, and so but they could have even used the same stunt person.
Sure.
Right. If he doesn't have any lines, right, you just use him and he's all set to go. But unfortunately, no, no, they're propping up dead Fuller, which, I mean, can you imagine if
doesn't he have like a newspaper too or something?
Right, he's got a newspaper in front of him. They've kind of propped him up so he's like leaning over, but he looks like he's kind of sitting, like with the cat, like kind of leaning, like he's like
slumped a little bit.
Right. When that happened, when they get to the scene and we see him sitting there, I mean, I can't imagine for himself, right? So he's going through the script for this movie, and he's like, "Oh, scenery chewing baddie, great lines, great one-liners. Oh, great line. This is beautiful. Okay, this is great. I can really work with this. I'm in. Are you sure? Yeah, no, I'm in. And then he gets to that scene. He's like, "Wait a second. What do you mean I have to play dead?
You're a corpse in this.
You're a corpse. Wait, I didn't. Well, it's not my fault. You didn't read that far. You already signed the contract. It's like, yeah.
It's the only scene in his catalog of things I've seen him in because he chews the scenery. That's the proper way to put it. Because in Blood Fist 6, Skyscraper this, he's definitely chewing it. And, to go from that to, it's hard to choose a scenery as a dead guy is what I'm saying.
Well, and
but he pulled it off, didn't he? He played a convincing bad guy. So good for him.
I mean, the sequence, I wonder too, if so if it had been Mayor He who wrote it, if somebody else had written it, I bet there would have been a scene of like the mortician, like fixing him up,
Yeah.
But with Mayor he's like, I'm not casting a mortician. I'm not shooting a scene in a funeral parlor. No, we're not doing any of that stuff.
Well, again, to reverse engineer this, and I'm wondering how much thought went into it, or if it just was a happy accident, because how many people die in these movies by getting blown up or shot? In which case, if you've got 4 holes in your chest, and or you got blown away by an Uzi, it's going to be hard to prop you up and make you look like Weekend at Bernie's. But in this, his character drowns, essentially. I mean, did his car explode before it went over?
No, it just fell. Yeah, it just fell over. Yeah.
So again, do you think maybe they thought ahead and said, okay, we have to make sure he dies in a very exciting way, but he can't have his body touched? Like, was that a forethought, or was it just a coincidence?
Yeah, no, that's a great point. I wonder myself. I wonder, like, yeah, if they wrote that in there and they were just like, "This is how we're doing it." Yeah, it's crazy,
and it just happened to work out that way because that's a drowned body could look a lot. You just blow dry his hair, get him toweled off, and prop him up in a subway station.
And I mean, that's the thing too with it being a PM movies. I think any other movie would have gone through the process of fixing him up.
Yes,
you would have seen all of that. And again, it's like I think of like The Sweeper, where C. Thomas Howell, whenever he gets chewed out by his superior, it's through the answering machine while he's lying in bed. Because it's just like, we're not spending the money on a police precinct. We're not going to spend the money on any of that stuff. It's just have somebody call, leave a message in the machine, and chew him out. It's such a PM thing. But to your point, like here, like, yeah, this is like, another very PM thing to not just be like, nope, the dead body's going to be propped up sitting, at Pershing Square at a cafe, supposedly drinking a cappuccino.
Because the ultimate beat, which is they made this choice to go with the Weekend at Bernie's, rug pull, that's the ultimate beat. Do we need to see a beat setting that up? If you can tell the story without that beat, is it superfluous? Maybe PM was a better storyteller than any of these, big studio movies. Because again, you're right. It probably would have been another scene preceding it, setting it up, and that takes time, and no boobs in that scene if it's a mortician, and no fight scenes. So screw it, we'll just skip to it. But it comes across so Bugs Bunny that like it's I don't know, it's one of those moments where you have to think, like, if this had come from another writer with this, that is too stupid, right? Find a better way. But because Murphy was the man in the saddle, you could just be like, no, we're going Bugs Bunny, we're going to do Weekend at Bernie's with this. So
no, that's a great point. I never even thought of it that way, that like Mary can make the call on it.
Yeah, he was making all the calls on this one. And maybe he was right.
Well, because I think, to your point, we're at a point in the movie where, like, I think if this had been a big budget movie, it would have probably been like, like they would have had like a guest appearance by like maybe like the guy who made the switch to Sanka in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, the teacher.
Uh-huh.
And he's the mortician, right? And he's helping them fix all, so he gets his SAG credit for that movie, and he gets, everybody recognizes him as that guy, or maybe like I'm trying to think of Wallace Shawn or somebody like that, it's like play, and it's like this whole like montage of him, doing things and people like looking at it going like, that's good, that's great, and then they prop him up and like, what do you guys think, But from a PM standpoint, for a fan of a PM movie, we don't need any of that, right? We want the big shootout that we know is coming in this subway station. That's what we need. We don't need the Wallace Shawn appearance.
Yeah.
And from Mary's standpoint, he's like, I don't have to pay this other actor. I don't have to use this other set. We don't have to spend time on film. We can just cut right to that scene and just take for granted that all happened beforehand.
And compartmentalizing the action is exactly why we love this stuff. So I mean, that's why again, master storytellers that maybe all as pretentious film students were in the wrong. We should have been studying these things,
right?
Well, because there's something to be said for that. Just keeping the good pieces closer together is sometimes a much better way to tell a story.
Well, and I think too, like maybe the other thing too is if you're Joseph Merhi, you've got like all these really great stunt people. And you can do all these great things, and that's probably the other piece of it too. Like if you're writing a script for somebody and they tell you what they want, if you don't know, oh, okay, well, if I skip this scene out here, there's going to be a great action sequence that they're going to put in between here because I don't know who's doing the action, or something like that. But he's Mayor. He's like, okay, I can spotlight these action guys because from a storytelling standpoint, like. I think even like, if you were a novelist or something, if you skip that whole sequence of them preparing the dead body, it feels like it's something that should be in there. Like that's
well.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, not to cut you off, but and also because I keep saying it's so Bugs Bunny, when it happens in the movie, it's a very quick reveal. Like you don't even have time to process how silly it is necessarily. Right. But if you have that scene in the with a mortician or whatever, you're really leading up to like, this is a brilliant plan. Right. Like, look at them; they're putting a brilliant plan in action. When at the end of the day, it's very goofy. So maybe it's a way to call less attention to what was a very goofy bit. And now you get a nice little surprise. And then your brain's already focused on what's happening 8 seconds later once the Uzi start going off in the subway. So it's a way to hide that maybe they knew it was I think we're digging way deeper than anyone in the development of this movie did. But it may be a way to like subvert the goofiness of that moment and then make it a nice little... Because I did not see it coming when it happened. It was I'm like, I haven't seen that before, except for when I watched this 10 years ago, but I don't remember it.
No, I had completely forgotten it too. You'd think like when I read my review, I didn't mention the review either. It's like, you think that would be a big thing. I wonder if at the time I was like, well, I don't want to mention it in the review because I don't want to give it away. But it's like, and I mean, again, when the crooked cops discover that he's a dead body, that he's dead, and that they push him over, and then they shoot Lizardo in the, so it's like, great job, guys, protecting Lizardo, who's going to be your witness. But that's also kind of a PM thing too, right? It's like, hey, if you're a criminal, you get your comeuppance. You can't,
absolutely.
So he gets shot, and then suddenly it's like ballroom blitz time, PM style, where it's just glass breaking everybody's finding partitions to get behind and shoot things. Again, we discover that the guys, there's like a tandem, like a guitar and saxophonist tandem who are playing music in the subway station, who suddenly they've got weapons and they're shooting everything. And then it leads to this really great end fight, which I thought was a fascinating end fight scene between Wincott and the baddie, because again, they had to make that work because we've already seen that Wincott's such a badass that it's like, how is that guy going to defeat him?
Yeah, because we haven't seen him. Well, I mean, has pulled his gun, but like he hasn't done anything badass. So it is, I mean, going back to like Beverly Hills Cop, it's very similar to that, where he's just got his human shield with but it's just a random lady on the subway in this. It's not an important character necessarily, but same kind of beat. It's like how he takes the coward's way of shielding himself with a random person on the subway, and but Wincott still overcomes. And the fight once they get off, and then with the subway, it just reminded me so much of Speed thematically.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I liked was that Wincott had that sweet sweep. But then the sweep led to him being vulnerable and the baddie getting the upper hand by kicking him from the ground up.
Yeah.
which was a twist that I was like, I mean, again, that's Art Camacho choreographing those fights. And, I wonder if that's also something for him because, later on now he's having to do, movies with people like Dermot Mulroney and get them
Yeah.
to be able to fight and make it look realistic. I wonder if, again, that was a PM thing where it's like, okay, I've got these people who've never fought before and I've got to make them look realistic in these movies. And, again, the fight looked really good.
Yeah, no, it was excellent. It's like, how do you make your bad guy as menacing as your, badass hero? He does the cowardly things, the kicking and stuff like that. So, and it works with the character, so it's great.
Now, I do have an answer about that connection. It wasn't Street Night. It was The Expert. And it was one of the
Rick Avery.
No, actually, well, it was one of the stunt guys. His name was Buck McDancer.
Okay.
Which is like has to be the best stunt guy name ever.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I was looking through the stunt names to see who I recognized. Like, for example, Denny Pierce. I don't know if Denny Pierce was the guy driving the motorcycle, but I know he joined Spiro Rosatos when Rosatos was doing the Fast and Furious movies. He was a stunt driver. I think he's been a stunt driver in those movies.
Okay.
So I was like seeing if there's other names like that I recognize, and I was like, "Who's Buck McDancer? That name sounds great." So he's an older dude. He's born in like 42, so he's like in his 80s now.
Oh my gosh.
And yeah, I mean, he hasn't done anything since the 2010s, but he does like a lot of like movies that we recognize, like for stunt work, like The Longest Yard. Like movies that were kind of like not huge. Big budget movies, but like big enough.
Yeah.
But like also like small, like something like Just Married. I'm seeing on the list here and stuff. But
okay.
But he did. Again, he was just kind of just doing stuff for everybody. So he's in the PM movies. So I don't know who he is. There's no picture of him, obviously. So I have no idea. He did do stunts in The Sweeper as well. So
Okay.
in Rage. So it looks like he's kind of done some of the big ones. But he's also in The Expert. Zero Tolerance and others. So he's like 3 or 4 of my top 4 PM movies. He was in them. I mean, at this time in the 90s, he would have been in his 50s. So I don't know if he was like the main baddies stunt guy. So maybe he's the one that is getting thrown around by Wincott. I don't know.
Maybe he's the one playing the saxophone because those got to be stunt guys.
That's a good point. Yeah,
maybe I imagine because one of the saxophone players, he had a big bushy mustache. I could imagine a guy like that being named Buck. What was it?
Buck McDancer.
Buck McDancer, man, because I sat through the credits too, and I was looking at the stuntmen, and the only one that popped out to me was Rick Avery, who directed The Expert, I believe, or he was one of the directors.
Oh,
so there's a whole thing with that movie where there was 2 directors or something.
That's right.
Yeah.
So that's a good point. So I wonder if he brought Buck McDancer along. He was like, "Hey,
this is my buddy Buck."
Right? Exactly. Yeah. It was like one of those things. So I didn't see Buck in the credit. I was like just reading through them on IMDb, and I was just I was really curious about it. But I missed Rick Avery. I'm
pretty sure that I saw him in there.
Yeah, no, you did. Yeah. Also, Joni Avery. So I'm with his wife. Because they went through a lot of both men and women stunt people in that opening scene. I mean, it's just like the whole kitchen staff is just like getting nailed all over the place, and so.
No, and then they go down like an escalator, and there's just men and women in Fuller's Way. He's just throwing them all aside, and they're all rolling down. So, yeah, you went through a lot of stuff. I mentioned it on the Comeuppance podcast. So if you've heard me babble on there, you're going to hear the same thing. Because all these movies, these guys got to make a living. When I was getting married here in Vegas, we're interviewing all these different videographers, and my wife was mostly handling that because that was more something she was interested in. But I had to go to the interviews where you're kind of hearing them tell like their packages and here's what we can bring, here's how we do our wedding videos. The guy we ultimately went with was a guy. All he mentioned was like, "Yeah, I've worked on movies in the past, but I'm in Vegas. I'm doing this now." And he like slid over his like resume, and all I see are like PM Entertainment movies.
Oh, nice.
And I was like. I like whispered to my wife, like, this interview is over. He's hired. Like, why wouldn't we? And she's like, "What does that mean?" I'm like, "I don't know. Maybe he'll have us do like a ramp jump down the aisle or something like that because he's worked for PM." So, that it's all, these guys, they got to work. And he did a bunch of like camera work for PM is what I should say. He wasn't a stuntman by any means, but Yeah, it's always cool to see these names pop up.
That is amazing. Because I think, they would have like kind of their main cinematographer, but
Yeah.
then I think all the stunt coordinators had their own cinematographers that they worked with. And so,
Oh, yeah, sure.
yeah, because they had camera people all over the place, I think, with those, especially with those stunt things. So he could have been, he might have been the person who set the camera underneath the flipping car.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Which is what you want at a wedding.
Yeah,
You want to have those slow-mo down angles, people flying through the air. Yeah, exactly.
Right, exactly. That was one thing we missed out on our wedding, my wife and I, because we did like the very small ceremony, and so I think my brother just took a bunch of pictures for us on his iPhone. That was how we did it. We did like 14. Yeah, so we had there's like just 14 people at the wedding. So the woman who officiated it, we were going to go to the beach to do it, and then we looked at her place. She lived near the water, and we were like, do you do weddings here? And she's like, oh, yeah, I've got a whole thing set up in here. And we're like, this is great. This is perfect. Why don't we just do it here? It was like the same town where, my family live and everything, so it was easy to get to. And she's like, well, if we're just doing it here, I'll charge you half because I don't have to go anywhere.
Oh,
I was
wow.
like, really? Oh, okay. So, yeah, we were doing things on the cheap for sure.
Could you then have used that half of the budget to get a ramp jump? That would have been great.
I know. I didn't even think of it. Well, the other part is my wife and I don't drive, so I didn't even think of a car ramp. Like that would have been like the most ironic thing, right? It's like to have like a car ramp jump. I wonder in Maine if that thing would be cheaper or more expensive to get something like that.
I don't know.
Yeah,
it's a good question. It's a great question.
Right. To figure that out. Yeah. Now I was trying to think if there's anything else on this this movie that we haven't covered yet, because again, there's just so many good parts in it. Again, like the Corvette chase scene, it's almost like an afterthought with all the other great chase scenes.
Yeah. No. There's a lot that kind of you look over. We didn't even talk about the strip club fight scene as much, yes. And that was another great one where Wincott, I almost called him Speakman, two Jeffs. Yes. Wincott doesn't have a gun, but he's like wrestling the gun from one guy, and he's able to commandeer that, even though he's not necessarily holding it to take out. So there's a lot of great little nuggets in there that just in the big picture might get looked over, but they're wonderful little beats. This is a movie where if you were just to take the I see these things where they do like kill counts in movies, where they'll do like a highlight reel of just all the deaths in a movie. If you were just to do a kill count for this one, or just totally out of context the action scenes, it would just totally fly on YouTube as wonderful little nuggets, little gems.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because it's like between the cars exploding and like people getting, the opening, I guess it's not like you said, the bank robbery doesn't have any shooting, but then like that hotel sequence, it's just like Wincott and Jonathan Banks diving behind couches, diving behind partitions, diving through mirrored glass. But like, it's like the moment they get behind a partition, they're invincible. And
it's what can bullets travel through and what can't they? It's totally up to who's standing behind it,
Exactly. It's so perfect. And you're just like, where did this come from? It's just sort of out of nowhere. And the other thing I love is that they've established that there's a pool in this place.
Yes. Yeah.
And so it's like Wincott catches Fuller. He's got Snake. He's got him arrested. And it's like, there's glass we haven't used yet. There's like these big windows that face out. And so it's like he gets away, right? He headbutts him and gets away, and then Wincott catches him. They fall out the window. Now you can tell too from the stunt guys, they don't fall into the pool when they fall over. Like they're not making it that far. So there must have been like a good, cushioning behind them. But then they land in the pool, and you get these kids that are on vacation that are just like yucking it up and loving it.
Yeah, it's got to be some crew members' kids or something like that, because they're just pumping their fists like, yay, death. We just saw people plummet to their death.
Yes. And then, of course, Wincott's like, I just got this coat, this mustard color.
Beautiful yellow coat.
Yes. Which I think that is like the best, is that like he went through the process to get that coat, and he's like all excited about it. Now he's upset that it was ruined in the pool. Yes. And the rest of us are just like, no, you're better off without it, Mr. Wincott.
It will never be the same shade of bright yellow mustard that you wanted it to be. But also thematically, think about it, because Fuller, he survives the water in the front half, that big in the pool scene, but then later water is what leads to his demise. So maybe there was a duality that we're missing out on here.
Yeah.
I don't know, probably not, but
No, but it is fitting, right? That there is that like, again, it's like when you watch a PM movie, you just feel like they're just throwing a bunch of action things against the wall. But you wonder if there is like something like that where it's like, and again, from the stunt guy standpoint, whether it's Rosado or some, I know there's another second unit director who worked on this one as well. Was it McAbbott? Was that his name? Am I just adding Mick to everything after Buck McDancer? Let's see here. It's I had it. McAvoy. McAvoy. That's what his name is. So Scott McAvoy.
Wow.
And he's done other second unit stuff as well. It's interesting with him. He tends to just be a second unit director. He's not like Rosados or Colas McKay or somebody who's like will do both. Will do like second unit directing and stunt coordinating. So like I think he was second unit director on Zero Tolerance when Red Horton and Broadway Joe Murphy were the stunt coordinators.
Okay.
So it's kind of like one of those things. But I think this is technically Spiro Rosados' first time as stunt coordinator for a PM movie. And he also has a second unit director credit. So I wonder if there's moments where Rosados is like, no, I'm doing this. I'm I'm setting this up. But McAvoy is there as well. And so, so you kind of, I don't know where I was going with that about them, but they it's again, it's still kind of that kind of that action quotient that you get in these movies.
Absolutely. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess anything else on this, Rich, that you wanted to mention?
No, Wincott's the man. He should have done more starring vehicles. He did plenty, and they're all pretty. I can't think of really any that were just completely unwatchable. There was one called like Street Law or something like that. I remember back in the day, something like that. And I remember that one being pretty rough. But when he got the chance to star, he always did a more than serviceable job, and big picture too. The dude can act, which is more than a lot of these guys. You can say I love Don the Dragon, but that's not what's front and center usually is his acting. But Wincott's a legit. He can act, and he doesn't come across phony or anything like that. So I think his acting is actually really strong in this,
and his presence. It's just like
he
knows where he is on camera, and he knows how to like smoke a cigarette and cock the one eyebrow. And it's just such a beautiful. I mean, like when he's getting questioned by the IA guys, and he's got the one eyebrow cocked with a cigarette, and he's just like, and it's such a beautiful thing. And like also when the guy dies, when the baddie gets hit by the subway, and you just get the shot of Wincott lighting up another heater. It's so beautiful. It's such a good buttoner on that scene.
Yeah, absolutely. He's Canadian, right? Isn't he?
He's from Toronto. Yeah, even though he talks like he's from New York, he's
he sounds very New York. Yeah.
Because I mean, that's one of the things about PM2 is it seems like everybody sounds like they're from New York unless they're supposed to really be from California. It's like all the detectives sound like they're from New York. All the mob guys are from, so I mean, I feel like if you're a mob guy who grew up in LA, just because you're an Italian doesn't mean you sound like you're from New York.
That's true. Right. Or thick Boston accents. We get a little of that in this movie. So.
Exactly. Yeah, that guy was the best. He was like, make sure you spot him over there or whatever. It's just like,
I honest to God thought I was like mishearing it at first, like because I may have been distracted by my phone or something. But when I heard it, I was like, what? And but it was thick Noma Garcia Parra.
Right, exactly.
Very thick Boston.
Yeah, I can't remember what he said to Wincott. He said something to Wincott that was just like so like I mean, I can't remember what it was, but it was just like so bad. Yeah, it's a nice touch in this movie because again you got like Lasardo with his New York accent and it's all those little touches that just make these movies so great.
Oh, and one only other silly moment, and again, I don't know when they go to the tattoo parlor and there's a gal, she's getting a tattoo on her butt, and Wincott and McWhirter walk in, and it's just like, excuse me, honey, can you pull up your pants and give us a? I'm like, I don't know if that's protocol for. I don't have any tattoos, but I imagine it'd be like, no, like finish what you're doing. My butt's out, like, and also you're just letting people in the room, like I don't know.
Yeah, no, there's a sense of like. This guy is, I guess, like he's really good at it. Maybe I don't know. Yeah, or I guess if she's getting a tattoo on her butt, maybe she doesn't care.
Or this guy's so good, it's worth letting other human beings see my butt for no reason,
right?
Because I know I'm getting a quality product from this
That could have been what they were establishing there, and we didn't even think about. Yeah, yeah. Again, Joseph Mayer. He's like parsimony in his writing. Just like
Yeah. Well, also McWhorter says something like she's describing the tattoo of the person they're looking for, and she's like, it's like a tail with a skull. And I'm like, that's 80% of, tattoo. Well, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe in my mind, because I don't have tattoos. To me, everyone who gets a tattoo is a biker or something. Right. I don't know, which is so not the case. But her description of the tattoo is wonderfully vague. And he's like, oh, this one. And he immediately knows.
Well, it's like Lizardo looks like he's like in a Yakuza movie, where he's got like the sleeves and everything. And of course he's showing off the fact that I wonder if this was part of his role in the movie as well, where he was like, you know what, guys, I've been working out. I need a shirtless scene. And they were like, really? Okay. You need a, okay. All right, we'll do it. Cause it seemed like at the end when they were putting the wire on himself, he wanted everybody to know he had the abs, and he had worked out the pecs. I don't, are those his tattoos, or was he, did they, cause that seems like a lot of work to draw on tattoos for his character.
Well, cause I've seen and now when I see him in things, he's got tattoos everywhere. So I don't know, maybe who knows?
Yeah. It might just be part of his thing. Yeah. But yeah, the fact that she would have picked out one tattoo out of all the tattoos he had on him, that like, that's the one that I recognize. And he's like, oh yeah, that's Robert Lizardo. I give him tattoos all the time. He's got a strip club down the street. Go check it out.
Yep.
Yeah, and I get it. To your point, it's kind of a funny way to like, when you do these movies, it's like A leads to B leads to C.
Well, it's like every episode of Law and Order. Like that guy's got to lead you to that guy, who then leads you to that guy.
Yeah, and you just don't have like the whole court thing. Yeah, and it's
exactly. Yeah, minus that.
Yeah, though I feel like PM movies would also like not like defense attorneys either. They wouldn't like the full legal process. They weren't like. I mean, this movie is interesting because it's kind of not propaganda. It's Wincott is definitely a good cop, and there are some good cops. But I mean, like when the police officers go to Snake's house and they're just there with a silencers, just taking guys out. It's like, again, talking about the death toll in this movie. To have like two these detectives in their suits and everything, like in their 50s, just walking around like picking guys off in this mansion, is just amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, so they don't mess around. But yeah, well, I guess Rich, as we're wrapping up here, anything that you wanted to plug?
I got nothing right now, man. I had a Lifetime movie come out. I had two last year. My one with Tori Spelling, which turned out pretty good. Abducted in the Everglades. So if you ever wanted to see Tori Spelling being chased through the Everglades, it's the perfect movie for you. And then I had a prep school murder mystery come out on Lifetime that turned out pretty good as well. I just finished writing a horror movie for a producer. It's out there, man. It was something I was hired to write based on this company's concept, and it's out there. But script turned out pretty good. Probably be doing a few more drafts of that, and hopefully it'll get made. It'll be a nice little departure from Lifetime stuff for a bit, but nothing pending. But yeah, if you just tune into Lifetime channel and leave it on for like 2 days, odds are one of my movies will come up. So feel free to check out one of those.
Well, yeah, I can't wait to check out the horror movie. I think that'll be sweet to see that one.
It should be cool.
Yeah, whatever let us know. But Lost in the Everglades is on Hulu now, so people can check that one out. So
and one of my favorites. Sorry, I will plug something then. One of my favorite Lifetime movies, Abducted on Prom Night. They always have these stupid titles, so please don't judge it by the title. But it's basically, that is what it is, about a bunch of kids being abducted on prom night, held hostage in the back of a prom limo. It's kind of like Collateral a little bit, but Lifetimey. I think it's a really fun one, and it was on Netflix acquired it somehow, so it did its run on Lifetime, and then a year or so later, Netflix picked it up. It cracked the top 10 for a couple days, which was cool to see that. Something I wrote made the top 10 Netflix. And most people kind of enjoy it for some good, goofy fun. It's not going to win any awards, but it's a good, goofy, fun thriller. And check that out if you got Netflix.
Yeah, and I guess my algorithm of the stuff that I watch on Netflix, Netflix sent me an email telling me.
You told me, but yeah, you were one of the people who broke it to me.
yeah, it was really cool. So yeah, that's another one people can check out for sure. So yes. Yeah, I think also Final Heist is on Tubi, right?
Yeah, I did a couple Tubi originals back when they made Tubi originals. They don't really do it anymore. They just acquire movies rather than making them themselves, which stinks because I love working with them. But Final Heist is another fun one. Tim Abel's in that movie. That's the name people who listen to this podcast would probably know best.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah.
Yeah. But Tim Abel is an excellent bad guy in Final Heist. That's a fun one. And I have a horror movie on Tubi that I did for them as well called This Never Happened, which the guy I wrote it with and directed it is the biggest Sam Raimi fan you'll ever meet. So it's very Evil Dead-ish, and kind of a fun one as well. So if you have, well, I guess everyone has Tubi. It's free. But if you're ever bored and want to watch something on Tubi, This Never Happened is a good little horror, and Final Heist is a fun, silly little thriller. So check those out too, please.
I didn't know that This Never Happened was one of yours. I didn't know that. That one's, because I did know Final Heist. I did, because I think I'd seen on Instagram that you'd posted about it, and also Tim Abel posted about it. Because I followed him on Instagram. So that was really cool.
Yeah, no, that's the one movie of mine I've gotten to go to set on, and spent my lunch break talking with him and one of the actresses in the movie. And he's as cool and as big a badass as you would expect. He's super nice, but super badass too. So it was really cool having him in it.
Yeah, he seems great. I've communicated with a little bit, nothing too crazy. And one of the things he liked was when I reviewed Sniper Special Ops, the Seagal movie. Yep. I kind of focused more on him because as I said,
he's the lead.
Exactly.
Seagal is so non-consequential in that movie.
Exactly. He just said, I think Simon at Explosive Action did like a count of how long he's actually not sitting for, and it's not much. It's like
maybe the first and last time you see him in the movie.
Right.
He's standing, but the rest of the time he's seated at a table.
He's just seated. It is kind of a funny thing where Fred Olin Ray's like, well, who can I get to do the heavy lifting in this movie? Well, Tim Abel, I work with him a lot. He can, he can carry the movie for me, and he did. He carried it. So
he's great in it.
So I think that was one type of community. But one thing I remember was when you had posted, I think, one of your scenes when you were acting in Sector 4 Extraction, and you made a joke, and Tim Abel commented. He was like, hey, everybody's kind of, and I was like, oh my God, Tim Abel is talking shop with you. That was fantastic.
No, he was so encouraging, because I don't know if my intent was not to say like I'm aspiring to be an actor. I have no desire to do that. It's just when we were filming Sector 4, Gruner called me one morning and said, hey, can you play a role, and you have two buddies who can also play like soldiers? And I'm like, I don't know anyone I got friends, but I don't know anyone that look military. So we all show up, and we wound up acting, and my acting's not great, but I posted that scene just because it's cool to see, me and my two high school buddies who are not actors acting opposite Olivier Gruner. And I posted it because, any of us get deliver anything close to a decent performance, me and my buddies. But Tim Abel wrote a very nice comment about encouraging. And I thought that was very nice, even though he's probably looking at it. He's a military dude, and here I am standing, back then I chewed tobacco, so I have like a giant wad of tobacco, in which I don't know if that's appropriate for a soldier in the field. I don't know what's right. And I'm just dressed in like, it might be, but
there's no smoke, right? Like you don't.
Sure. Yeah, maybe that's it. But then me and my buddy, we're all wearing like Gruner's extra camouflage clothes that he just had. So it doesn't fit any of us properly. And one of my friends wearing like a scarf on his head, but it looks like a babushka because it doesn't fit his head shape. It's a ridiculous scene. And I'm sure Tim was disgusted by our portrayal of soldiers, but that was very, very kind. And I thought that was nice.
Well, I wonder though, because for me, when that scene came in the movie, I was okay with it because it broke up the monotony of all the training sequences.
That's true. Yeah, there's the first word spoken in like 20 minutes.
Right, exactly. So it's like, okay, this is good. But also, there was a producer, Benjamin Sachs, who he was interviewed on the I Must Break This podcast, Dolph Lundgren podcast, and he was talking about how, because he was in the military, he served in the military, how a lot of times directors would want to do things that were not military act, like they'd have them wear uniforms and things like that just because they looked good on screen.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so absolutely.
I imagine Abel has been through a lot worse than that. Like he's probably had like directors telling him to do all kinds of things that he's like,
that's probably
I would never do that. So he probably looked at that and was like, hey, that's great. You got your first try. It was, he's probably been so offended before that we can't even imagine.
That's, you're probably right. And when he saw that, I'm sure he remembered me from the conversations we had. So he was probably like, "Oh, there's the writer doing his best to look like a badass soldier," but he did his best. It's kind of like a kid when they're in a play, like in elementary school. It's like, "Oh, okay, you did your best." So
yeah. And if you're going to get that kind of compliment from anybody, Tim Abel is definitely someone to get it from for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, perfect. Well, thank you again, Rich. This was another really fun conversation. I think that this movie is one people should watch. I mean, I guess at this point, everything's been spoiled for you if you're this far in, you haven't seen it in a while. But still, I definitely a fun conversation.
And the only other thing I'll say is when the default menu screen on my TV, it'll like cycle through like what's free on Tubi, what's on this service. I hadn't seen it on there ever before, but this week all I've been seeing is ads for the Bruce Willis Last Man Standing. And so like I'll see Last Man Standing, I'm like, "Oh wow, I couldn't find my DVD. This is great." But it's the Bruce Willis one. So which I don't remember that being any good at all. So I don't know. Maybe I'll have to check that out too and have a double feature.
I don't remember being anywhere near as good as this one.
Nope. And I'm sure not.
And I think the other thing too is IMDb, luckily, usually they confuse like movies that have the same titles, and they'll say like, "Oh, Last Man Standing, you can get that anywhere." And then you get there and you're like, "No, this isn't the Last Man Standing I want." So at least they didn't do that with this movie. So you don't have this like thinking like, "Oh, it's on Tubi," and it's not. I'm trying to think of some movies that's happened to me with. It definitely does happen though.
All the time. Yeah, we're a little confused. Yeah, absolutely confuse the two.
Exactly. Well, yeah. One thing I guess with our podcast audience is at least they'll know. Yeah, it's the PM one. They'll be looking for that one.
If anyone would know the difference, it's the guys listening to this. So,
exactly.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Exactly, for sure. Well, thanks again, Rich, for coming on. It was great chatting with you, and thank you everyone for listening. Again, I'm sorry for my voice. Hopefully, it wasn't too distracting this time. But yeah, thank you for listening. We'll be back soon. Bye, everyone.
Take care. Bye.